My sister wanted his baby, so she forced me to sleep with her fiancé. This is my messed up story. Let's begin. I didn't choose to sleep with my sister's fiancé. She chose for me. You're not serious. My voice comes out thin, scraped raw by the kind of fear that starts low in your stomach and keeps climbing until it wraps around your throat. I'm standing in the middle of Bianca's dressing room with my fingers locked so tightly together my knuckles ache, staring at her like if I look hard enough, this will turn into one of her cruel little jokes. It doesn't. Bianca sits in front of the vanity in a silk robe the color of champagne, one leg crossed over the other, brushing mascara through her lashes like we're discussing flowers for a dinner party, instead of the fact that she just told me I'm going to her fiancé's penthouse tonight in her place. You heard me, she says calmly. The room smells like her perfume. White roses, expensive powder, something sharp underneath. The scent has been all over this house for years, clinging to hallways and couches and our mother's approval. Bianca's smell, Bianca's voice, Bianca's world, and mine, by comparison, has always felt like a quiet thing tucked in the corner. I swallow hard. No. She lowers the mascara wand and finally looks at me through the mirror. It's almost worse when she looks at me directly. Bianca has one of those beautiful, polished faces that make people trust her before she's even spoken. Same dark hair as me, same eyes, same mouth, but on her everything always landed right. Sharper, brighter, more valuable. On me, it all looks softer, easier to ignore. You don't get to say no, she says. A cold shock runs through me. Watch me. I turn for the door, but her voice slices across the room before I can take 2 steps. If you walk out, Mama loses the house. I stop so fast it hurts. For a second I can't breathe. Slowly I turn back around. What? Bianca sets the mascara down with careful precision. Sit. I don't sit. I just stand there shaking, arms wrapped around myself, because I already know that tone. It's the same tone she used when we were kids, and she wanted me to take the blame for something she'd done. Calm. Superior. Certain I would fold. I hate that some part of me still does. What did you do? I ask. Her expression doesn't change. I didn't do anything. Mama did. She borrowed against the house again. My stomach drops. No. No. Why? Bianca lets out a short breath like I'm the one being difficult. Because appearances matter, because the engagement party mattered, because the dress, the catering, the press, the flowers, all of it mattered. Aaron's family notices things. Aaron. Just hearing his name makes something uneasy move through me. Aaron DeSantis. The man half this city talks about in lowered voices, the one people call cold in public and merciless in private. The one whose family built an empire in steel, shipping, and blood. The one our mother nearly cried over when Bianca landed him. You would have thought she'd won a crown. I stare at my sister. So you spent money we don't have to impress a man who already proposed to you? Bianca's mouth hardens. I'm trying to secure a future. For yourself. For all of us, she snaps, then smooths her face again as if the crack never happened. At least one of us has the nerve to think beyond next month. I laugh then, because the alternative is screaming. And your solution is to sell me to your fiancé? Her eyes go flat. Don't be dramatic. I almost choke on the bitterness rising in my throat. Dramatic? She stands. Silk whispering against silk, and turns to face me fully. Up close, we look enough alike that strangers call us twins sometimes. No one ever confuses us for long. Aaron needs an heir, she says. The words hit the room like a stone thrown through glass. I blink at her. Once, twice. Then I laugh again, but it comes out jagged. What does that have to do with me? Her gaze flickers just for a second, then settles. Everything. I see it then. The things she's been circling. The reason she's too composed, too rehearsed, too ready. A slow, sick horror spreads through me. No. This time, it comes out barely louder than a whisper. Bianca folds her arms. I can't have children. I stare at her. Out of every terrible thing I thought she might say, that wasn't one of them. Something inside me softens on instinct, old reflex, overriding anger. She sees it and hates it immediately. Don't look at me like that, she snaps. I don't need your pity. I wasn't. Yes, you were. Her chin lifts. There it is again, that ugly pride she wears like jewelry. I swallow. Does he know? Her silence is answer enough. My mouth falls open. Bianca. He cannot know. Her voice is suddenly iron. He will not know. I take an unsteady step back. You're insane. No, I'm practical. She steps toward me. Men like Aaron don't marry for love, Naomi. How they marry for bloodlines, legacy, continuation. If he thinks I can't give him a child, this engagement is over. Everything we have, everything Mama has built this entire fantasy around, gone. You should tell him the truth. The slap comes so fast I barely see her move. Pain cracks across my cheek. For a moment all I can hear is the ringing in my ear. Bianca stares at me, breathing hard, hands still half raised. Do not be stupid. My eyes burn, not from the pain, from humiliation, from the fact that this still surprises me even now. Slowly I touch my face. She lowers her hand and smooths her robe like she didn't just hit me. We have a solution, she says. My whole body goes cold. No. You haven't even heard it. I don't need to. You do. Her eyes pin me in place, because if this falls apart, the bank takes the house, Mama breaks, and every debt tied to this engagement comes due. Not eventually, immediately. I shake my head. That is not my fault. No, Bianca says softly, but it will be your problem. She walks to the vanity, opens a drawer, and takes out a folder. When she holds it out, I don't move. Take it. I don't want to. I do it anyway. Inside are papers, loan documents, notices, numbers that make my vision swim, final warning, past due, default. I flip pages too fast, heart pounding louder and louder in my ears. This is real. This is real. Mama knows, I whisper. Bianca gives me a thin smile. Mama knows enough. That means no, or not all of it. My throat tightens. And what exactly is your solution? She watches me for a beat too long. Then she says it. Tonight, Aaron thinks he's spending the night with me. The folder slips in my hands. Bianca keeps speaking, each word crisp and deliberate, as if she's practiced this speech in the mirror. The wedding is in 4 months. The timing is perfect. If you get pregnant now, I can announce mine within the month. We'll move you somewhere quiet for a while. Private doctors, no mistakes, no leaks. When the baby is born, she tilts her head, the child will be mine publicly. His, legally. Everyone wins. For 1 second, I genuinely wonder if I'm going to throw up. You're asking me to let him. I'm telling you what is going to happen. No. The word tears out of me now. No, absolutely not. You cannot ask me to do this. You cannot ask me to carry a baby for you like I'm some animal you hired. Her face hardens. You think I want this? I think you want whatever keeps you in your pretty little life. Her nostrils flare. This life feeds all of us. This life is built on lies. Then maybe you should be grateful one of us knows how to survive. I stare at her. My chest rises and falls too fast. There's rage in me now, hot enough to burn through some of the fear. You are disgusting. Bianca's expression shudders. And you, she says quietly, have always confused softness with morality. Before I can answer, there's a knock on the door. Both of us freeze. Our mother steps in without waiting, dressed in a cream pantsuit and pearls, smelling like hairspray and nerves. Her smile is too quick when she sees us. There you two are, she says. Bianca, darling, the stylist is downstairs, and Naomi. Her gaze flicks to my face, to the mark rising on my cheek, then away so quickly it makes me feel sick. You need to get ready. I laugh once in disbelief. You know. Our mother's mouth tightens. Don't start. Don't start, I stare at her. She just told me she wants me to sleep with her fiancé so I can get pregnant and hand over my baby, and your response is, don't start? Naomi, she says sharply, glancing toward the open doorway like the walls themselves might gossip. Lower your voice. The betrayal lands deeper than Bianca's slap. I look between them, these two women who have spent my whole life deciding which pieces of me are useful. Bianca, with her beauty and appetite. Mama, with her worship of status, dressed up as sacrifice. And me, always the one expected to understand, to help, to make myself small enough to fit inside their plans. Something in me cracks. No, I say again, steadier this time. Find another way. Mama closes the door behind her and steps closer. There is no other way. There is always another way. Not one that keeps this family standing. I laugh bitterly. This family? Her eyes flash. Do not stand there and judge me when you have no idea what it takes to keep a roof over your head. I hold up the folder with shaking hands. This is what it took? Her face goes stiff, and that's all the answer I need. I raised both of you alone, she says. I did what I had to do. And now I'm supposed to do the same? If you love us, yes. The room goes silent. That word again. Love. As if love is whatever they need it to be when it's time to carve something out of me. My eyes sting. You are asking me to destroy my life. Bianca gives a small cold shrug. Don't flatter yourself, it's one night. One night, I repeat, staring at her. One night that could give me a child. A child that will have everything, she says. Money, protection, a name, and a mother who stole it. Her jaw tightens. Mama steps in before Bianca can speak. Enough. The driver arrives in 40 minutes. I look at her in disbelief. You've already arranged it? Of course she has, Bianca says. I turn for the door again, but Mama's voice stops me this time. If you walk out, she says quietly, I will tell the bank to proceed. I freeze. She continues, each word measured and devastating. We will lose the house. Your nursing program will be over because there will be no money left for the semester. And Bianca's engagement will collapse, which means Luca's family will make sure no one in this city ever helps us again. I close my eyes. Nursing school. The one thing that has ever felt like mine. The one road out that didn't depend on a man or a ring or smiling through things that break you. My chest caves inward. When I open my eyes, Bianca is watching me, calm, knowing. She knew exactly which threads to pull. You planned this, I whisper. Bianca doesn't deny it. Mama doesn't either. A slow, ugly ache spreads through me, worse than panic now, worse than rage. It's grief, because some small, stupid part of me thought there was still a line they wouldn't cross. I know better now. Bianca walks toward me with a garment bag draped over one arm. When she unzips it, black silk spills out. Minimal, elegant, expensive. A dress chosen to make me look like her in dim light. Or maybe chosen to make me look like temptation. Put this on, she says. I don't take it. Her eyes narrow. Naomi? Does he know what you're like? I ask. The question lands. I can tell because her mouth goes still. Does he know there's nothing inside you but ambition and ice? She steps close enough that our noses are almost touching. No, she says softly. And if you're smart, he never will. Then she presses the garment bag into my hands. I hate that I take it. I hate that my fingers curl around the smooth black fabric. I hate this room, this house. The mirror reflecting 3 women and not one of them looking like family. Mama moves toward the door. You have 20 minutes. The door closes behind them, leaving me alone with the dress and the crushing sound of my own breathing. For a long moment, I just stand there. Then I set the folder down on the vanity and stare at myself in the mirror. The red mark on my cheek is fading. My eyes are too bright. My mouth looks like it belongs to someone who has already started disappearing. I think about running. I really do. Out the back, shoes in my hand, cash from the coffee tin in the kitchen, bus station. Anywhere. Then I think about Mama sitting on the front steps of a house that is no longer hers. About nursing school slipping through my fingers. About Bianca smiling through her wedding while I become the selfish daughter who ruined everything. They know me too well. That is the cruelest part. My hands shake as I unzip my dress. Black silk slides over my skin like a secret. By the time I'm done, I barely recognize the woman in the mirror. She looks like Bianca at first glance. That, I think, is the point. A quiet knock sounds at the door, followed by Bianca's voice. The car is here. I close my eyes. For one last second, I let myself feel it fully. The fear, the shame, the fury. Then I open my eyes and reach for the handle. When I step into the hallway, Bianca is waiting for me. For the first time all night, she smiles. Not warmly. Triumphantly. She brushes an invisible speck from my shoulder and leans in close enough for only me to hear. Don't embarrass me, she whispers. Downstairs through the tall front windows, a black car waits at the curb like an omen. And somewhere across this city, a man I have never touched is waiting in a penthouse full of shadows, believing the woman walking toward him belongs to him already. He has no idea my sister just sent him the wrong one. And I have no idea that before this is over, one of us is going to burn his whole world down. Chapter 2. The first time Aaron DeLuca looked at me, I understood why men twice his age lowered their voices when they said his name. It wasn't because he was loud. It was because he wasn't. The black car carried me through the city in silence, so polished it made me feel like I was already being buried. I sat with my hands locked together in my lap, Bianca's black silk dress clinging to my skin, the red mark on my cheek hidden under makeup she had blended over me herself, like she was preparing a gift or a sacrifice. Streetlights flashed across the window in gold and white streaks. Baltimore, beautiful in parts, brutal in others, and tonight every building looked sharper somehow, every shadow longer. My reflection in the glass kept startling me. Dark hair, bare shoulders, mouth too tense, eyes too alive with panic. Not Bianca. No matter what dress I wore, I would never be Bianca. Which meant one of two things was about to happen. Aaron DeLuca would either know immediately that my sister had sent the wrong woman into his bed, or he wouldn't. I didn't know which possibility terrified me more. The car slowed, then turned through a set of black iron gates that opened before us without hesitation. The building that rose in front of me wasn't just luxury, it was power dressed as stone and glass, tall, silent, expensive, in a way that wasn't meant to impress strangers. This wasn't showy wealth, it was the kind that assumed the whole city already knew who owned it. The car stopped under a covered entrance. My door opened before I could touch the handle. A man in a dark suit stood there, expressionless, one hand extended. "Miss?" I stared at him. He waited. My body felt strange as I unfolded myself out of the seat and onto the pavement. The night air was cool against my skin, but it didn't help. Nothing helped. My pulse was everywhere. In my throat, in my wrists, in the soles of my feet. I wanted to run. I wanted to run so badly my knees almost buckled with it. Instead, I followed him inside. The lobby was all dark marble and muted gold. Quiet. No music. No chatter. No one lingering around pretending not to stare. Just men in tailored suits at discreet distances and a woman behind the desk who didn't even glance up as we passed. Everyone here already knew where I was going. That thought nearly stopped me cold. The elevator doors opened before we reached them. My escort stepped aside, gesturing me in. I entered on shaking legs. And only when the doors slid closed did I notice there were no buttons. Of course there weren't. A private elevator. Direct access. Straight up to the devil. My breath fogged faintly in the mirrored walls. I watched myself rise floor by floor, a woman in borrowed silk with terror tucked under her ribs, and I thought, absurdly, that I should look more broken than I did. Maybe this was what shock did. Maybe it made ruin look elegant. The elevator stopped with a whisper. The doors opened, and there he was. Aaron wasn't standing in the center of the room like some theatrical villain waiting to receive tribute. He was near the windows, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a glass of something amber that caught the low light. The city stretched behind him in glittering lines and hard edges, but somehow it made him look even darker. He turned at the sound of the doors. Everything inside me went still. He was younger than I expected. Not soft young, not easy young, just not old enough to carry this much control like it had been carved into his bones. Black suit, no tie, white shirt open at the collar, broad shoulders, lean waist, dark hair brushed back from a face that would have been beautiful if it weren't so severe. He had the kind of face artists would ruin by trying too hard. Strong nose, hard mouth. Eyes so dark they looked almost black from a distance. Those eyes landed on me, and I felt it, physically. A pause, a shift, not desire, not exactly, assessment, like he was reading me before he spoke. A little late, he said. His voice was low, smooth, and far too calm. I swallowed. "I'm sorry." The apology left my mouth before I could stop it. Something flickered across his face. Not softness, not kindness, interest. He set his drink down on a side table and came toward me. Every instinct in my body screamed to back up. I locked my knees and made myself stay still. He moved like a man who never had to hurry because nothing important ever escaped him. By the time he stopped in front of me, my lungs had forgotten how to work. He was taller up close, bigger too, not bulky, controlled, tension under expensive fabric, the kind of man who looked like he could smile without warmth and break bones without raising his voice. His gaze moved over my face once, then back again. His eyes narrowed just slightly. "What happened to your cheek?" My hand flew halfway up before I caught it. "Nothing." The answer came too fast. He watched me for one long, unbearable second, then another. "Nothing," he repeated. I nodded, even though my heart was slamming hard enough to hurt. His gaze slid lower. The dress, my bare shoulders, the way I was holding myself too rigidly, like if I relaxed even a little I might shatter. He noticed all of it. Of course he did. Aaron DeLuca looked like a man who noticed everything. "You're nervous tonight," he said. Not a question. I forced myself to lift my chin. Should I not be? That did it. Something changed in his expression, subtle but real. The faintest pull at one corner of his mouth, not a smile exactly. More like he'd found a detail he hadn't expected and wasn't sure he disliked it. Bianca usually hides it better. My stomach dropped so hard I thought he might hear it hit the floor. I had prepared for many things on the drive here. Not that. Not this immediate, terrifying proof that he knew my sister well enough to feel the difference before he'd even touched me. I made myself breathe in through my nose. People said Bianca and I sounded alike on the light phone, in dim rooms, from behind closed doors. She'd counted on that. But Aaron was standing less than a foot away from me now, and nothing about him suggested he missed details for long. Maybe I'm tired, I said. Maybe. He reached out before I could flinch away, just one finger under my chin. Cold fire shot through me. He tilted my face toward the light, studying the makeup over the fading mark. My pulse became a frantic thing. I told myself not to tremble. I failed. His thumb brushed once, barely there along my jaw. The contact was light. The effect wasn't. "You're shaking," he said quietly. I stepped back then, because I had to. Because if I didn't, the room was going to tilt. He let me go, didn't follow, didn't force. That somehow made it worse. "I can leave," I blurted. The words shocked both of us. His brows lifted a fraction. "Can you?" The room went quiet. No one had ever managed to put so much meaning into 2 words. "Can you? Can you leave the penthouse? Can you leave the deal? Can you leave the mess your family made? Can you leave without consequences?" My mouth opened. Closed. Aaron watched me figure out that I had no answer worth saying. Then he turned away from me and walked toward the bar. "Drink?" he asked. The sudden normalcy of it made me dizzy. No. He poured one anyway. Of course he did. He handed me a glass, and after half a second of panic, I took it because refusing felt dangerous and spilling it would be worse. My fingers brushed his as I accepted it. Another tiny spark. Another instant too sharp to be harmless. I hated my body for noticing him, for noticing the clean scent of his cologne, the warmth of his skin, the steadiness in the hand that had just touched my face like he was trying to solve something. He lifted his own glass. "Sit." He said it mildly. I sat anyway. The couch was deep black leather, soft enough to swallow me and cold against my legs. He took the chair across from me instead of sitting beside me, which should have made me feel safer. It didn't. It only made the whole thing feel more deliberate. The penthouse was enormous, all glass and stone and low lighting, but there was almost nothing personal in it. No photographs, no clutter, no warmth. It looked like a man lived here who trusted architecture more than people. Aaron crossed one ankle over his knee and took a sip of his drink. "You've been avoiding me," he said. The statement landed like a trap, snapping shut. I stared at him over the rim of the untouched glass. "Have I?" He held my gaze. "For 2 weeks." I searched desperately through the scraps Bianca had thrown at me before I left. Meetings, schedule changes, headaches, family obligations, half-lies stacked over half-lies. "I've been busy," I said. His expression didn't move. Doing what? Wedding things. The silence that followed was not kind. Aaron set his glass down. "Tell me what flowers you chose." My blood turned to ice. I kept my face still by sheer force. "What?" "Our wedding flowers." He leaned back, watching me with those impossible dark eyes. "Tell me what you chose." I looked at him. He looked back. He knew. Maybe not everything, maybe not yet, but he knew enough to test me, and he was enjoying the slow pressure of it. I put my drink down before I dropped it. "White roses," I said carefully. He kept staring. "Ranunculus," I added because I'd heard Bianca say it to the planner once. "And orchids." A beat passed, then another. Finally, Aaron nodded once, a slow movement that told me nothing. "Good," he said. I wanted to scream. Instead, I folded my hands in my lap so he wouldn't see how badly they shook. He studied me for another moment, then stood. "Come here." Every muscle in my body locked. He waited. I rose because not rising felt impossible. He held out his hand. I stared at it like it belonged to a snake. His mouth shifted again, that nearly smile that never reached his eyes. "I'm not going to bite, Naomi." My heart stopped. The world did too. For one blinding second, there was no air in the room, no city outside the glass, no blood in my veins. Only that. My name, my real name. Not Bianca. Naomi. He knew. I looked up at him so fast it almost hurt. Aaron's face was unreadable, calm, controlled, but there was no mistaking what I'd heard. "You?" My voice broke. He stepped closer, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to keep looking at him. "Yes," he said softly. "I know who you are." I couldn't feel my hands. I couldn't feel anything except the hot, sick rush of terror flooding every part of me at once. I can explain, I whispered. Can you? There it was again, that terrible, quiet question. I shook my head before I could stop myself, eyes burning now. No. His gaze dropped to my mouth for one brutal second, then rose again. Honest, he murmured. That's new. Humiliation flared hot across my skin. I didn't want to come here. I know. You know? The words came out sharper than fear should have allowed. Then why am I still here? Something changed in his eyes then, darkened, focused. Because, he said, I haven't decided what to do with you yet. A real shiver went through me this time, not entirely from fear, and that terrified me most of all. Aaron lifted his hand again, slower now, giving me time to move if I wanted to. I didn't. I should have. I didn't. His knuckles brushed the side of my face, just over the hidden bruise beneath the makeup. Did Bianca do this? My throat closed. He waited. I hated that he knew the answer before I spoke. Yes. The word was barely sound. For the first time since I'd walked in, something dangerous slipped through the calm surface of him. Not loud anger, not a dramatic reaction, just a freezing stillness that felt much worse. He dropped his hand. How long have they been planning this? I swallowed hard. I don't know. Try again. I flinched. His expression didn't soften. The room felt smaller now, the air heavier, every line of his body sharpened into something that looked less like a man and more like judgment with a pulse. Since she found out she couldn't have children, I said. I think. My voice shook harder with every word. I didn't know until tonight. I swear I didn't know until tonight. His jaw flexed. She sent you here blind. It wasn't a question, but I nodded anyway. A muscle jumped in his cheek. The only sign of emotion he allowed himself. Then he looked at the black dress clinging to me, the one Bianca had chosen carefully, and his face went so cold it made my skin prickle. Take it off, he said. I stared at him. He held my gaze. Not lust, not hunger, something far more dangerous. Take off the dress she put you in, he said quietly. I'm tired of looking at her choices. My breath caught. Aaron, that's not your color. The room tilted. No man had ever looked at me like this before, not like he was furious on my behalf, not like he could see the hands other people left on my life and wanted them gone. It should not have felt the way it did. Safe and terrifying all at once. My fingers shook as I reached for the hidden zipper at my back. I could barely feel it, barely work it down. Aaron didn't touch me, didn't help. He just watched, dark eyes unblinking as the black silk loosened and slipped from my shoulders. It pooled at my feet like spilled ink. Underneath, I wore the pale slip Bianca had insisted on. Aaron looked at me for one long, unreadable second. Then he shrugged off his suit jacket, crossed the space between us, and draped it around my shoulders. The fabric was warm from his body, much too warm. It swallowed me whole. Better, he said. My throat ached. Why are you being kind to me? His eyes held mine. And whatever answer I expected, it wasn't the one he gave me. I'm not, Aaron said. I'm deciding how much damage your sister just did. The words should have chilled me. Instead, standing there wrapped in his jacket, with my sister's dress in a dark heap at my feet, I felt the first crack split through the terror, because for the first time tonight, I wasn't the one with no power in the room. Bianca had lied to the wrong man. And Aaron DeLuca looked like the kind who never forgave being made a fool. He stepped back then, not far, but enough to change the air between us again. Sit down, Naomi, he said. I did. My legs almost gave out with relief. He picked up his phone from the side table, his face unreadable as he typed something quickly and sent it. Then he placed it back down, slow and deliberate, like none of what had just happened had shifted the ground beneath us. But it had. I knew it. He knew it. And somewhere across the city, Bianca still thought she was controlling the story. She had no idea that by midnight, Aaron knew my name, knew her lie, and had looked at me like he was already calculating how badly she would bleed for it. Chapter 3. By the time Aaron's men drove me home, my life had split cleanly into before and after. Before was the version of me that still thought I understood the rules. After was the girl who had stood in a Mafia boss's penthouse wearing his jacket over her shoulders while he said my sister had lied to the wrong man. I sat in the back of the black SUV with my hands folded in my lap and Aaron's jacket still wrapped around me, even though one of his men had placed Bianca's dress in a garment bag and laid it beside me like evidence. The city blurred past the tinted windows in streaks of gold and gray. Dawn was threatening the edges of the sky, pale and cold, and I felt just as colorless, like the night had stripped me down to the rawest parts of myself and sent me back unfinished. I had not slept with Aaron. That should have made me feel relieved. It didn't, because relief implied safety. And nothing about tonight had been safe. Not the way he looked at me when he said my name. Not the way his voice cooled when I admitted Bianca had hit me. Not the terrifying calm with which he'd sent a text after wrapping me in his jacket, like he'd already started moving pieces I couldn't see. Most of all, not the fact that he had let me go. Men like Aaron DeLuca didn't let anything go by accident. The SUV rolled to a stop in front of the house just as the first weak light touched the windows. One of his men opened my door. "Miss!" I stepped out on unsteady legs. The porch light was still on. The house looked exactly the same as it had a few hours ago. White columns, flower boxes, the expensive front door Mama liked to polish like we were better than we were. But now all I could see was the lie underneath it. Debt hidden under paint. Desperation dressed up as elegance. I climbed the steps with Aaron's jacket clenched tight around me. The front door opened before I touched the handle. Bianca stood there in a cream silk robe, perfectly styled for a woman who was supposed to have spent the night with her fiancé. Her hair was brushed, her makeup gone, her face expectant. Then she saw the jacket. For the first time in my life, I watched my sister lose control before she could hide it. Her eyes dropped to the black wool around my shoulders, then to the garment bag in my hand, then back to my face. "What is that?" she asked. Not hello. Not what happened. What is that? I looked at her and understood something with a clarity so sharp it almost felt holy. She wasn't worried about me. She was worried about what I carried back from him. I stepped past her into the foyer. "Mama, awake?" I asked. Bianca shut the door harder than necessary behind me. "Naomi." I stopped under the chandelier and turned. The house was quiet in that eerie, expensive way rich neighborhoods are quiet before sunrise. No traffic, no birds yet, just the soft hum of central air and Bianca standing barefoot on polished marble trying not to look afraid. "What happened?" she demanded. I stared at her for a second too long, then I said, "He knows." The words landed with a soundless violence that made the whole room feel different. Bianca's face went white. "What do you mean he knows?" My laugh came out thin and ugly. "I mean, he looked at me and knew I wasn't you. That's impossible." "It wasn't to him." Her nostrils flared. "Did you tell him?" "No." "Did you say my name?" "No." "Did you tell him about the house? About Mama? About any of it?" Every question came faster, sharper, more frantic than the one before, and that, more than anything, made me tired. I had been terrified for hours, shaking, cornered, humiliated, touched by a man who looked at me like he saw all the bruises I tried to hide and wanted the names of everyone who put them there. And Bianca's first instinct was still to protect herself. "I told him the truth," I said quietly. Her eyes widened. "What truth?" "That you sent me there blind." The slap this time never landed. Bianca's hand flashed up, but I caught her wrist before it could hit my face. We froze like that. My fingers locked around the bones of her arm, her breath coming hard, my own heart hammering so loudly I could hear it in my ears. Something changed in her expression. Not guilt, not shame, recognition. She had expected me to come back broken. Not this. Not with Aaron's jacket on my shoulders and enough backbone left to stop her hand. "Don't," I said. My voice came out low, steadier than I felt. For a second, I thought she might fight me. Then Mama appeared at the top of the stairs in a pale satin robe, one hand on the banister, taking in the scene below with that terrible, fast intelligence she reserved for moments when everything threatened to crack. "What is going on?" she hissed. Bianca yanked her wrist free. "Ask her." Mama's gaze landed on the jacket. A flicker of alarm, quickly hidden. "Naomi, what happened?" I looked at both of them. My mother with her perfect posture and panic tucked behind her eyes, Bianca with her beautiful face sharpened into rage, and whatever softness I'd still been carrying around for this family broke apart in my chest. "He knew I wasn't her," I said, almost immediately. Mama descended the stairs too fast for dignity. "How? I don't know." Bianca let out a hard, disbelieving laugh. "You must have done something." I turned to her slowly. I breathed. Her mouth opened, then shut. For one awful second, none of us spoke. Then Mama looked at the jacket again and said the thing that made me want to walk right back out of the house and never come home. Did he touch you? Now are you okay? Not did he hurt you? Not what did he do? Did he touch you? As if the value of the night lived only there. I stared at her. Then I said, he put his jacket on me. Bianca looked like I had stabbed her. Mama looked worse. Why? Bianca demanded. I almost smiled, because that was the question, wasn't it? Not whether I'd been frightened, not whether I'd been thrown out, not whether Aaron had threatened to expose all of us by morning. Why had he covered me instead of using me? I don't know, I said, but I did know, a little. He had looked at Bianca's dress like he hated it on me, like he hated her fingerprints on the whole night. And that thought was dangerous in a way I didn't have words for yet. Mama stepped closer. Did he say what he intends to do? I shook my head. That was true. Aaron had not told me what he intended. He had only looked at me with those unreadable dark eyes and said he hadn't decided what to do with me yet. Me. Not Bianca. Not the family. Me. I'm calling him, Bianca said suddenly. Mama spun toward her. No. Bianca's chin lifted. I have to control this. The laugh that escaped me then was so bitter it silenced them both. Control. That was her favorite word for destruction when she was the one holding the knife. You don't control him, I said. I know him better than you do. Do you? The question slipped out before I could soften it. I didn't want to soften it, because he knew in under a minute that you sent the wrong sister. That doesn't exactly sound like control. Bianca stared at me. Then something ugly moved through her face. Jealousy. Cold and immediate and vicious. What happened up there? She asked softly. The change in her voice should have scared me. It did, but not enough to stop me from answering. He asked my name. Bianca went still. I watched the meaning hit her. Not just that he had known, that he had cared enough to ask, that he had looked at me long enough for my name to matter in that room. He had no right, she said. I almost laughed again. No right? My voice rose. You sent me into his penthouse in your place, and you're talking about rights? Mama stepped between us before Bianca could lunge. Enough, she snapped. All of you. Enough. There were only 3 of us. But it felt like the house was crowded with every lie we'd ever told. Mama dragged a hand over her face, suddenly looking older than she had an hour ago. We need to think. No, I said. You need to think. I am done. Both of them looked at me. Really looked. Maybe for the first time in years, because I wasn't crying, I wasn't pleading, I wasn't folding myself smaller to make this easier for them. I was standing in Aaron DeLuca's jacket with a bruise under my makeup and a kind of cold clarity I had never had before. Mama recovered first. Done, she repeated. Naomi, you don't understand the position we're in. I understand it perfectly. You borrowed money you didn't have. She lied to the man she plans to marry. Then the 2 of you decided my body was the easiest bridge across the mess. Bianca crossed her arms. Oh, stop being dramatic. I turned to her so fast she actually stepped back. Do not use that word with me again. The foyer went silent. Even I could hear the difference in my voice. Bianca heard it too. Her eyes narrowed. You think one night in his penthouse changes anything? I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. What I did know was this. The version of me who had gone there had left trembling in a black dress chosen by my sister. The version who came back had Aaron's scent on her skin, his jacket on her shoulders, and a terrifying new understanding of just how badly Bianca had miscalculated. Mama tried a different angle. Her voice softened, went syrupy with false reason. Naomi, please, we all want the same thing. I looked at her. No, I said, we really don't. I walked past them and went upstairs before either of them could stop me. My room was exactly as I'd left it. Soft gray walls, nursing textbooks stacked by the bed, a mug with dried tea at the bottom on my nightstand. The ordinary little life I'd been trying so hard to build inside this house suddenly felt like a child's drawing taped over a crack in the wall. I shut the door and locked it. Then I stood there shaking. The adrenaline had held me upright downstairs. Here, alone, it flooded out of me all at once. My knees buckled and I sat hard on the edge of the bed, clutching the jacket around myself like it was the only solid thing in the room. I could still hear Aaron's voice. That's not your color. No one had ever said anything like that to me before. Not because it was romantic. It wasn't. It was worse. It was observant. Intimate in a way that had nothing to do with skin and everything to do with being seen. I pressed the heel of my hand to my mouth. Then I smelled it, his cologne on the wool. Smoke and cedar and something darker underneath. Clean, expensive, male in a way that made my stomach tighten. I should have taken it off. I should have thrown it across the room. Instead, I curled into it. Just for a minute, I told myself. Just until the shaking stopped. But when I woke, it was nearly noon, and I was still wearing his jacket. The nausea hit before I could fully open my eyes. I lurched upright with one hand over my mouth. For one bewildered second, I thought it was panic, left over from the night before. Then it rolled through me again, harder. I stumbled to the bathroom barely in time. By the time I was done, my eyes were watering and my body felt hollowed out. I knelt on the cool tile, breathing hard. One hand braced against the bathtub. No. It was too soon, wasn't it? I sat back on my heels, dazed. My cycle. I tried to count backward and immediately wished I hadn't. Late, not by much, but late enough that something sharp and terrified dug into my ribs. The room felt smaller. I forced myself to stand, splashed cold water on my face, and stared at my reflection. The makeup had worn away in patches. The bruise on my cheek had bloomed faint and yellow at the edges. My mouth looked pale. My body didn't feel like mine. Maybe it hadn't since yesterday. I opened the cabinet under the sink with hands that did not feel steady and rummaged through the box where I kept things Mama never noticed and Bianca would never need. There. One unopened pregnancy test, bought months ago during a scare with a boy from one of my anatomy labs who had kissed beautifully and turned out to be useless. I had laughed when I bought it. Just in case, I told myself. Now the little white box felt heavy as a brick. I took it into the bathroom stall and read the instructions twice, though the words blurred halfway through. Then I did what it asked and waited. The longest 2 minutes of my life had happened last night in Aaron DeLuca's penthouse. These were worse. I stood at the sink gripping the marble edge so hard my fingertips went numb. My pulse beat in my throat, in my eyelids, in the hollow between my collarbones. This was impossible. It had only been one night. One orchestrated, humiliating, sickening night that had somehow cracked my whole life open. The timer on my phone went off. I looked down. 2 pink lines. For a second I couldn't understand what I was seeing. Then the air left my lungs in a rush so hard I had to sit on the closed toilet lid before my legs gave out. No. I stared at the test in my hand until my vision blurred. Pregnant. The word arrived slow and heavy and absolute. Pregnant. There was a baby inside me. Aaron's baby. My whole body went cold, then hot, then cold again. I put the test on the sink like it had burned me and pressed both hands flat over my stomach. It was still flat, still mine, at least from the outside. Soft beneath my palms. Quiet, but not empty. A sob rose in my throat so suddenly I choked on it. I didn't know what I was crying first. The baby. Myself. The fact that Bianca's plan had worked. The fact that this tiny hidden life already felt more real to me than anything in the house downstairs. The fact that if they found out, they would start taking. Appointments, clothes, rooms, decisions, then eventually the child itself. No, I whispered to the empty bathroom. The word sounded pathetic against tile. I tried again. No. Stronger this time. Because something had shifted the second I saw those pink lines. The fear was still there, bigger than ever, but wrapped around it now was something fierce and trembling and immediate. Mine. I pressed both hands tighter over my stomach and bent forward like I could shield the life inside me with my own body alone. Mine. A knock sounded on my bedroom door. I froze. Naomi? Mama's voice muffled through wood. Are you awake? I stared at the pregnancy test on the sink, at the 2 impossible lines. Another knock. Naomi? My mind started running in all directions at once. Hide it. Flush it. Wrap it. Say you're sick. Say you ate something bad. Say nothing. Tell no one. Tell Aaron. Don't tell Aaron. He already knows too much. He doesn't know this. Bianca can never know this. My phone buzzed on the bathroom counter. I almost screamed. I grabbed it so fast I nearly dropped it. Unknown number. Every hair on my body lifted. I stared at the screen. Then the message opened. You're going to a private clinic at 3. My driver will take you. Don't let your sister come with you. Aaron, I read it once. Then again. Then a third time, because the room had started to tilt. He knew. Not just about last night. Not just about Bianca. This. Somehow, impossibly, terrifyingly, this. A fresh wave of nausea hit me, but it had nothing to do with my stomach now. There was another knock at the door. Naomi? Mama again, sharper. I looked from the text message to the pregnancy test to my own pale reflection in the mirror. Then I looked down and laid one hand over my stomach. The baby was only cells and blood and possibility. But already everyone wanted something from it. Bianca wanted ownership. Mama wanted rescue. I didn't know what Aaron wanted. That was the part that scared me most. I slid the pregnancy test back into its box with shaking hands. Then I typed a reply. How do you know? The answer came almost immediately. Because your sister is sloppy. And I'm not. Be ready at 3. I stared at the words until my pulse steadied into something colder. Then I deleted the thread, tucked the test box beneath a stack of folded towels, and opened the bathroom door just as Mama started knocking again. I smiled. It felt like baring teeth. I'm awake, I said. And for the first time in my life, I kept something that mattered from my family. Not because I was ashamed. Because now I understood the truth. If I wanted this baby to survive them, I would have to learn how to lie, too. Chapter 4, I lied to my mother before I'd even brushed my teeth. I think it's just something I ate, I said, leaning against the kitchen counter with a glass of water I couldn't bring myself to drink. Mama stood across from me in a pressed blouse and slacks, already put together like the world hadn't shifted overnight. Her eyes skimmed my face, searching for cracks, for weakness, for usefulness. You look pale, she said. I didn't sleep. That part was true. Bianca sat at the island, stirring her coffee she wasn't drinking, watching me over the rim of the cup like she was trying to peel me open layer by layer. You were gone long enough, she said lightly. The words had teeth. I ignored her. My stomach rolled again, sharp and sudden, and I tightened my grip on the counter until my knuckles went white. Don't react. Don't give them anything. Not yet. Not ever, if I could help it. Mama noticed anyway. Of course she did. Naomi, she said, softer now, stepping closer. If something happened... Nothing happened. The lie came easier the second time, too easy. Bianca's spoon stilled against the ceramic cup. Really? She asked. I met her gaze. For the first time in my life, I didn't try to soften what she saw there. No, I said. Not really. Her eyes narrowed. Mama's tension snapped tight again. Enough, both of you, we need to discuss what we're doing next. There it was, not what happened. Not whether I was okay. What we're doing next. I pushed off the counter slowly, ignoring the way the room swayed for half a second before settling. I'm not doing anything, I said. Bianca let out a short laugh. You don't get to opt out now. I looked at her, really looked, at the perfect sweep of her hair, the flawless skin, the confidence she wore like armor, at the woman who had sent me into a stranger's bed to fix her life. I already did, I said. The silence that followed was brittle. Mama stepped between us again, like she always did, when things threatened to break in a way she couldn't control. We don't have time for this, she said sharply. Naomi, you need to be ready this afternoon. My heart stuttered. Careful. Ready for what? Bianca answered before Mama could. A checkup, she said, with my doctor. My stomach turned so violently I had to press my lips together to keep it in. Of course, she had already arranged it. She needed proof, confirmation, control. She needed to see the pregnancy with her own eyes so she could start taking it. No, I said. The word came out flat. Final. Bianca blinked. Excuse me? I'm not going to your doctor. You don't have a choice. Watch me. Her chair scraped sharply against the floor as she stood. Stop saying that like it means something. You live in this house. You eat our food. You go to school on Mama's money. Everything you have is tied to us. And everything you have is tied to him, I shot back. Her lips parted. Got you. For one split second, I saw it. The flicker of fear she couldn't quite bury. Then it was gone, replaced by anger so clean it almost looked like relief. Don't pretend you have leverage here, she said. I didn't answer, because I wasn't sure I did. Not yet, but Aaron did. And that thought sat heavy and dangerous in my chest. Mama exhaled sharply. Enough, Naomi, you are going to that appointment. This is not a discussion. I held her gaze. I have somewhere else to be. Bianca's eyes sharpened instantly. Where? I shrugged, aiming for casual and landing somewhere close to reckless. Out. Her laugh was cold. You think you're funny? No, I said quietly. I think you're sloppy. That did it. Bianca took a step toward me, fury flashing bright and ugly. Careful, or what? I asked. Her hand twitched. Mine didn't, not this time. Mama moved fast, grabbing Bianca's arm before she could close the distance. Stop it, both of you. Her grip tightened. Bianca, you're not helping. Bianca yanked free, breathing hard. She's gonna ruin everything. I let the words hang in the air between us. Then I said, you already did. For a second, I thought she might actually hit me. Instead, she smiled. It was worse. Fine, she said. Go wherever you think you're going, but when this falls apart, and it will, I'm not fixing it for you. I nodded slowly. Good, I said. We agree on something. I turned and walked out before either of them could stop me. My hands were shaking by the time I reached my room. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned back against it, letting my head fall against the wood with a soft thud. Breathe. Just breathe. The house felt different now, like it was watching me. Like every wall had ears, every step was being tracked, every second counted down to something I couldn't stop. I crossed to the bathroom and pulled the box from where I'd hidden it beneath the towels. 2 pink lines. Still there. Still real. My stomach flipped again, but this time I wrote it out, gripping the edge of the sink until the wave passed. You're okay, I whispered to myself. Then, softer. We're okay. The word felt strange in my mouth. I pressed my palm flat against my stomach. Nothing had changed on the outside, but everything inside me had. A sharp buzz cut through the quiet. My phone. I grabbed it too fast, heart jumping into my throat. Unknown number. Again. I didn't hesitate this time. I opened it. Drivers outside in 20. Don't be late. A no greeting. No explanation, just control. I stared at the message, then at my reflection, then back at the message. This was it. The moment where I either handed everything over or I stepped into something I didn't fully understand and trusted the most dangerous man I'd ever met to help me keep it. My pulse steadied into something colder, more focused. I typed back. I'm not going with you if this is about controlling me. The response came faster than my breath. It's about controlling them. Get in the car. My throat tightened. Not reassurance, not kindness, but not a lie either. I swallowed hard. Then typed, they want me at Bianca's doctor. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. I know, that's why you're not going there. My heart kicked hard against my ribs. He really did know. Not just pieces, everything. I exhaled slowly. Then typed, if I come, this doesn't mean you own anything. The pause this time was longer. Deliberate. When his reply came, it hit harder than anything else he'd said. We'll discuss what belongs to who when I see you. That heat rushed to my face. Not embarrassment. Something sharper, more dangerous. I locked my phone and shoved it into my pocket before I could overthink it. 20 minutes. I moved fast. Jeans, a loose sweater, hair pulled back, no makeup this time, no mask. Let him see me, not the version Bianca tried to build. Me. By the time I slipped out the side door, my pulse had settled into a hard, steady rhythm. The black car was already waiting. Of course it was. The driver stepped out, opened the door without a word. I hesitated for half a second, then got in. The city moved around me again, but it felt different this time. Not like I was being delivered, like I was choosing where I was going, even if the destination was just as dangerous. The clinic wasn't in the city center. It was tucked away on a quiet street, lined with trees and discreet buildings that didn't advertise what they were. Clean. Private. Expensive in that quiet way Aaron seemed to prefer. The car stopped. My door opened. I stepped out, and he was already there. Aaron leaned against the hood of another black car, sleeves rolled up, dark hair slightly out of place like he'd run a hand through it one too many times. He looked less like a man in a penthouse now, more like something sharper, more real. His eyes found me immediately, and held. No surprise, no hesitation, just that same intense, unreadable focus. You're late, he said. I glanced at my phone. I'm 2 minutes early. Then I'm 2 minutes impatient. I shouldn't have smiled. I did, anyway. It slipped out before I could stop it. His gaze flickered, catching it. Something shifted. Not softer, but closer. Come on, he said, pushing off the car. I followed him inside. No reception desk, no waiting room, just a quiet hallway and a door already open at the end. Prepared, of course. He didn't stop until we were inside a private exam room. Then he turned. For a second, neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't empty. It was loaded. Heavy with everything unsaid from last night, everything that had changed since. Show me, he said. My breath caught. I didn't move. He took a step closer, not threatening, not gentle, just inevitable. Naomi, he said, quieter now. Show me. My hands shook as I reached into my bag and pulled out the small white box. For a second, I thought I might drop it. He didn't take it from me. He waited. So I opened it myself and turned it so he could see. 2 pink lines. Clear. Unmistakable. The room went very still. Aaron didn't react right away. He just looked at it. Then at me. Then back at it. Like he was confirming something he had already known but needed to see with his own eyes. Finally, his jaw tightened, and something cold and decisive settled over his features. "How far along?" he asked. "I don't know," I said. "I just found out this morning." His gaze snapped back to mine. "You didn't tell them." It wasn't a question. No. A beat. Then another. Something in his posture shifted. Not relaxed, focused. "You're not going to," he said. Again, not a question. I swallowed. "No." His eyes held mine, searching, measuring, deciding. Then he nodded once. "Good." The word landed like a lock clicking into place. My heart stuttered. "What does that mean?" I asked. He stepped closer, close enough that I could see the faint shadow of stubble along his jaw, close enough that I could feel the heat of him, steady and controlled and dangerous. "It means," he said quietly, "your sister just lost the only leverage she thought she had." A chill ran down my spine. "And me?" I asked. His gaze dropped slowly to my stomach, then back up to my face. Something dark flickered in his eyes. Not anger. Not exactly. Something deeper. Possession. Not soft. Not gentle. Terrifying. "You," Aaron said, voice low, steady, final, "just became my problem." My breath caught, and somehow, that didn't feel like a threat. It felt like the beginning of something far more dangerous. Chapter 5. Aaron DeLuca did not raise his voice. That was how I learned he was angry. The doctor entered the room 3 minutes after Aaron looked at the test in my hand and told me I had become his problem. He was gray-haired, polished, and careful in the way rich men's doctors always seemed to be, like they knew exactly how much trouble walked through their doors and had decided long ago not to ask questions that could get them killed. But the second he saw Aaron standing beside the exam table, something in his face tightened. Respect. Caution. Maybe fear. "Mr. DeLuca," he said. "Doctor. Doctor." That was it. One word. Flat. Controlled. Still, the room changed around it. The doctor's gaze flicked to me, then to the white test in my hand, then back to Aaron. "I understand you wanted this handled privately." "I want it handled correctly," Aaron said. The doctor nodded too quickly. "Of course." He turned to me then, his expression gentler. "Naomi, I'm going to ask a few questions." My name on his mouth startled me. Aaron had clearly already told him enough. Maybe too much. "How late are you?" the doctor asked. I swallowed. "A little over a week, maybe." He nodded and asked about my last cycle, symptoms, whether I'd had any cramping, bleeding, dizziness. I answered as steadily as I could while Aaron stood 2 feet away listening to every word like each one mattered. No man had ever listened to me like that before. Not a boyfriend, not my mother, certainly not my sister. The thought unsettled me more than it should have. The doctor made a few notes on his tablet. "It's early, but we can run blood work and do an ultrasound. We may not see much yet. At this stage, we're mostly confirming placement and viability." Placement and viability. My hand drifted to my stomach before I could stop it. Aaron noticed. Of course he did. His eyes dropped to the movement, then rose back to my face, unreadable. The doctor continued, "You'll need regular follow-up, prenatal vitamins, and significantly less stress than I imagine you've had in the last 24 hours. A strangled laugh escaped me. The doctor gave me a sympathetic look. Aaron didn't smile. "Do what you need to do," he said. The doctor nodded and stepped out to have the nurse prepare things. The second the door closed, silence dropped heavy between us. I was perched on the edge of the exam table with the paper crinkling under me, Aaron standing near the sink with his hands loose at his sides. And the strange thing was, I wasn't afraid in the same wild, blind way I had been last night. Not because he was less dangerous, because now I knew exactly where the danger was pointed. Outward, not at me. That should not have felt comforting. It did. "You told him my name," I said. Aaron looked at me. "Yes." "You told him I was pregnant." "Yes." "You make decisions fast." His gaze sharpened just a little. People who hesitate lose things. The words landed harder than they should have. Maybe because I had spent most of my life around people who hesitated exactly when it mattered. Mama hesitating before every bill until it became a disaster. me hesitating every time Bianca crossed a line because some pathetic part of me still hoped she'd stop on her own. Aaron did not look like a man who waited for disasters to bloom. He looked like a man who cut them down at the root. "You still haven't told me how you knew," I said. He took his time answering. "Then, your sister called my assistant 3 days ago and asked for the name of a fertility specialist." I blinked. "What?" "She used a private number she assumed couldn't be traced." "It could." His mouth hardened slightly. That alone was enough to make me curious. My stomach tightened. "She's been planning this for longer than she told me." Yes. No softness. No attempt to spare me. Just truth. And somehow truth from him felt cleaner than comfort from anyone else in my life. Aaron took a step closer, then she canceled 2 dinners, 1 family meeting, and every appointment I offered to attend. By the time she sent you to my penthouse in her place, I already knew she was hiding something. A pause. "I just didn't expect her to be stupid enough to hide you." Heat flickered low in my stomach, fast and unwelcome. Not from what he said, from the way he said you. Like he had separated me from Bianca completely already. Like whatever trap she built had broken the second he saw me standing in it. The door opened before I could answer. A nurse came in with supplies, smiling carefully in that professional way that meant she knew enough not to show nerves. "Blood draw first. Vitals." Then the doctor returned and led me to another room for the ultrasound. Aaron followed. The doctor gave him one uncertain glance. "Mr. DeLuca, if Naomi would prefer privacy." "He stays," I said. The words came out before I could think them through. Both men looked at me. I felt my face heat. I swallowed. "I want him to stay." Aaron's expression did not change, but something in the room did. The doctor nodded once. "Of course." A minute later, I was lying back on the narrow bed, with my sweater pushed up and my jeans loosened, the paper sheet draped across my hips. The room was dimmer here. The monitor glowed blue-gray in the corner. I stared at the ceiling and tried not to shake. This was real. More real than a plastic test with pink lines. A machine. A doctor. Cold gel spread over my stomach. I hissed softly at the temperature. The doctor murmured an apology and moved the wand slowly, eyes on the screen. Shapes flickered, gray and black and impossible to understand. I turned my head. Aaron stood near my shoulder now, not touching, just watching the screen with a concentration that made my chest hurt. The doctor was quiet for too long. My fingers curled against the paper sheet. "What?" I whispered. He adjusted the wand, focused, then exhaled softly. "There," he said. I looked. At first I saw nothing, just shadows, static, a blur. Then he pointed. A tiny dark oval tucked inside me like a secret. Something in my body stopped, then broke open. "That's..." My voice failed. "The gestational sac," he said. "Very early, but exactly where we want it." I stared at the screen. There was no heartbeat yet, no tiny baby shape, nothing dramatic, nothing a stranger would call moving. But to me it looked like proof that the world had changed and would never go back. My eyes burned. I blinked too hard and hated myself for it instantly. Aaron saw anyway. He didn't say anything. He just reached down and for one brief second set his hand over mine where it gripped the table. Warm. Heavy. Steady. I looked at him. He was still watching the screen. Not me. That somehow made it worse, or better. I couldn't tell anymore. The doctor continued explaining dates and follow-ups and blood work and vitamins, but his voice blurred around the edges. I heard enough to understand the important part. I was pregnant. The pregnancy was where it was supposed to be. For now, everything was okay. For now. The phrase lodged under my ribs. When it was over, the doctor stepped out to finalize paperwork and send in the nurse with samples. I sat up slowly, wiping gel from my stomach with trembling hands. Aaron handed me a towel before I could reach for one. "Thanks." He gave a short nod. I pulled my sweater back down. My body felt different now. Not physically, not really. More like awareness had settled over every inch of skin. Every breath. The baby. Inside me. The child Bianca planned to steal. The child Aaron now knew existed. My throat tightened. What happens now? He leaned one shoulder against the counter, arms folding across his chest. "Now I make sure your sister doesn't get near another doctor, another file, or another version of this story." My pulse jumped. "How?" "I already have." He didn't elaborate. Of course he didn't. The door opened and the nurse returned with a small paper bag, a folder, and a sample bottle of prenatal vitamins. She spoke directly to me but kept glancing toward Aaron like he was both a bodyguard and a loaded weapon. The second she left, Aaron took the folder from the counter before I could. I frowned. "That's mine." "It's ours," he said. Heat flashed through me. "No." His eyes met mine immediately. Sharp, dark, still. I should have been smarter, should have softened it, but my whole body was too full of fear and hormones and the image of that tiny shape on the screen to fake obedience. "That file is about my body," I said. "My pregnancy, mine." Something unreadable crossed his face. Then he handed it to me. Just like that. I took it, startled. Aaron looked at me for a long moment. "Good," I frowned. "Good?" "Yes." He pushed away from the counter. "I was wondering when you were going to stop talking to me like I'm Bianca." The room went very still. I stared at him, folder clutched against my chest. "I don't—" "You expect her kind of power to demand surrender," he said quietly. "Mine doesn't." My breath caught. He stepped closer, not enough to trap me, just enough to make me feel the difference in our height, our size, our gravity. "If I want your obedience, Naomi," he said, voice low and even, "I'll earn it, or I'll take the consequences of not having it. But I won't confuse fear with trust." No one had ever spoken to me like that before. Not with that much control, not with that much brutal honesty, not like I was someone whose choices mattered enough to negotiate instead of simply crush, which was ridiculous, because he was still a mafia boss, still dangerous, still absolutely capable of crushing anything he wanted. But he wasn't lying, and somehow, in a world built on pretty lies, that felt catastrophic. I swallowed hard. "And what if I don't trust you either?" His gaze dropped briefly to the folder in my arms, then back to my face. "Then you're smarter than most people in this city." I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I hugged the folder tighter. "You keep saying, my sister made a mistake, but she's not stupid. She's desperate." Aaron's jaw tightened. "Desperate people are often stupid. She'll fight." "I know. You sound like you want her to." His expression didn't change. "That depends on how much she values breathing comfortably." A chill went through me. He said things like that the way other people discussed weather. Not dramatic, not performative, just fact. I looked away first. That was a mistake too, because the second I did, the tears I'd been holding back all morning burned hot behind my eyes. The hormones, I told myself immediately. The stress, the exhaustion. Not him. Not this. Not the impossible tenderness of seeing that tiny dark shape inside me and realizing I already loved something I had known for less than a day. I blinked fast. Too late. Aaron noticed. Again, he stepped even closer this time, close enough that if I leaned forward a fraction, I would collide with the solid line of his chest. "Naomi." Just my name. Low. I shook my head. Don't. Don't what? Be nice to me when you're saying terrifying things." For the first time, Aaron actually smiled. It was small, brief, real enough to ruin me a little. "Life's full of contradictions," he said. The laugh broke out of me before I could stop it. Half hysterical, half something else. His smile disappeared, but the warmth of it lingered in the room like a lit match after flame. Then his phone buzzed. He looked at the screen. Whatever he saw hardened his face instantly. "Bianca?" I asked. "Yes." My stomach dropped. He lifted his eyes to mine. "She's at your house." My grip on the folder tightened. "She was already at the house. She isn't now." His voice went colder. "She's at your room." Ice slid down my spine. "She found out I left. She found out more than that." He slipped the phone into his pocket. "She had one of your doors forced open." My mouth went dry. The bathroom, the test box. I had hidden it well, but Bianca had spent her whole life pulling my secrets apart just to see what fell out. Aaron saw the answer on my face and moved before I did. "Come on." I followed him out of the room so fast I nearly forgot the paper bag on the chair. He caught it, handed it to me without slowing, and kept walking with that same controlled speed that somehow felt more urgent than running. By the time we reached the private exit, the black car was already waiting. He opened the rear door himself. I froze beside it. "What?" He looked at me. "If she found the test," Aaron's expression turned glacial, "then your sister just made a second mistake." I got in. He followed. The door shut. And as the car pulled away from the clinic, one thought beat loud and wild through my chest. Bianca had spent her whole life teaching me what power looked like in cruel hands, but she had never prepared me for what it would look like when it chose my side. Chapter 6. By the time we reached the house, Bianca was standing in my bedroom holding the pregnancy test like a murder weapon. I saw it the second I stepped through the doorway behind Erin, the little white stick in her manicured hand, the box torn open on my bed, my bathroom drawers half yanked out, towels thrown on the floor, my closet open like she had expected a body to fall out if she ripped hard enough. For one suspended second, nobody moved. Bianca looked from me, to Erin, to the paper bag in my hand from the clinic, and I watched the exact moment the last piece clicked into place inside her head. Her face changed, not surprise, not horror, rage, pure, white-hot, humiliated rage. "You little bitch." The words cracked through the room like glass. Erin stepped in front of me before I could even breathe. Not dramatic, not rushed, just one smooth, lethal shift of his body that put all of him between Bianca and me. It should not have made my knees go weak. It did. Bianca laughed then, high and sharp and ugly. "Oh, this is unbelievable. She actually went to you." Erin's voice was quiet enough to be terrifying. "Put that down." She looked at the pregnancy test in her hand and curled her fingers around it tighter instead. "No." He took one step forward. That was all. One step. Bianca had spent years bluffing men into backing down, charming them, needling them, making them feel like they were still in control while she rearranged the floor under their feet. None of that worked on Erin. You could see her realizing it in real time, and hating me for it. Mama appeared in the doorway behind us a second later, breathless and pale, one hand pressed to her chest as if she'd run upstairs. Then she saw Erin. Everything in her face drained out. "Mr. DeLuca," she said, too fast, too formal. "I didn't realize." "No," he said without turning around. "You clearly didn't." The silence after that was suffocating. I stood there behind him, clutching the clinic folder and the paper bag of vitamins to my chest like they were the only things keeping me upright. My room, my small, safe, ordinary room, had been ripped apart in less than an hour, by my own family, again. Only now, instead of feeling shocked, I felt something colder. Something final. Bianca lifted the test a little higher, eyes locked on me over Erin's shoulder. "You hid this from me." I met her gaze. "Yes," she smiled. It was the kind of smile people mistake for beauty until they look long enough to see the rot underneath. "You stupid, selfish little idiot," she said. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" My laugh came out hollow. "You mean besides getting pregnant with your fiancé's baby?" Mama made a strangled sound under her breath. Bianca's face twisted. Erin did not move, did not blink, did not take his eyes off her. "Last chance," he said. "Put it down." She looked at him then, really looked. I think some tiny part of her still believed she could talk her way out of this, seduce the moment, reframe it, turn herself back into the woman with the upper hand, so she lifted her chin and tried. "This is a private family matter," she said coolly. Naomi has always been emotional, impulsive. Erin cut her off with a glance. A glance. That was all it took. Her voice died in her throat. "I don't care how you describe her to yourself," he said. "You sent your sister to my penthouse under false pretenses. You put your hands on her. You forced your way into her room. And now you're standing here holding medical proof that was never yours to touch." He paused. The room felt like it was shrinking around his voice. "Nothing about that is private." Bianca's breathing went shallow. I could see it, the slight rise and fall of her chest, the tightening at her jaw, but she still wasn't done. Of course she wasn't. She had built her whole life on the assumption that if she pushed hard enough, other people would break first. "You were supposed to marry me," she said. Erin's face did not change. "I was supposed to consider it," he corrected. Her mouth parted. Even Mama looked stunned. Bianca recovered first. "That's not what you said." "No," Erin said. "It's what you heard." I felt something vicious and satisfying curl low in my stomach. Bianca heard it too. The difference between being chosen and merely tolerated. The difference between an engagement built on strategy and one built on illusion. She looked at me then, and the hatred in her eyes was so raw I actually felt it like a physical thing. "You planned this." The accusation hit so hard it almost made me laugh again. "Planned this? As if I had orchestrated any of this. As if I had wanted any part of it. I planned to survive you," I said. "That's all." Her hand twitched. Erin's did too. Not visibly. Not to anyone who didn't already know to watch him. But I knew now. I knew what stillness looked like in him right before it sharpened. Bianca knew too. She slowly lowered the test. Good. For half a second, I thought maybe that would be the end of it. Then she snapped. She flung it at me. The pregnancy test hit Aaron square in the chest and bounced to the floor. The sound it made was tiny, plastic on hardwood, but the room went dead silent around it. Mama gasped. I stared at the white stick on the floor between us like it had become a line no one could uncross. Aaron looked down at it, then up at Bianca. And suddenly I understood why men lowered their voices when they said his name. Because loud anger burns fast. This kind did not. This kind froze everything it touched. Leave, he said. Bianca actually laughed. It came out shaky around the edges. You don't get to throw me out of my own. Now, she flinched. It was small. Barely there, but it happened, and seeing Bianca flinch from a man's voice did something strange to my chest. Not relief. Not exactly. More like the first sharp crack in a locked window. Mama found hers first. Bianca, she said urgently, go downstairs. No, I said, no. Bianca's gaze kept darting back to me, to my stomach, to the paper bag in my hands, to Aaron standing in front of me like a wall she couldn't charm, climb, or tear through. Then she smiled again. This time it was colder, more calculating. Fine, she said. She can keep carrying it. My whole body went still. Bianca tilted her head, eyes glittering. But that baby is still mine when it's born. I think the entire room stopped breathing. Aaron moved before I could. Not at her. To me. He bent, picked up the fallen pregnancy test from the floor, handed it back to me without looking away from Bianca once, and said, very quietly, no. Just that. No threat, no shouting, no dramatic display. Just one word delivered like a verdict. Bianca laughed again, but now it sounded brittle. You think you can just change everything because you suddenly feel protective? He didn't answer. Didn't need to. He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket, pulled out his phone, and made a call. He never took his eyes off her. Yes, he said when someone answered. Send 2 women to the Harper residence, immediately. A beat. And one of mine downstairs. No one goes into Naomi's room again without my permission. Bianca's face drained of color. Mama looked like she might faint. I just stared. Because this was the first time he'd done it openly. The first time he stopped moving pieces in the dark and let us all see the board. You can't do that, Mama whispered. Aaron ended the call and slipped the phone back into his pocket. I already did. Bianca took a step toward him. She is my sister. And that is your only protection right now, he said. She stopped. The words hit all of us at once. Mama made a broken sound. Please, she said, wringing her hands together. Please, this has gone too far. I almost laughed at that too. Too far, as if too far hadn't happened when they sent me to his penthouse. As if too far hadn't happened when Bianca hit me. As if too far hadn't happened when she ripped my bathroom apart looking for proof she could use against me. Aaron turned slightly then, just enough that I could see part of his profile. Still hard. Still unreadable. Naomi, he said. My throat tightened. Yes? Pack a bag. The room dropped out from under me. What? You're not staying here. Mama's face went white. No. Bianca's voice cut in over hers. Absolutely not. Aaron ignored both of them. His eyes stayed on mine. Pack a bag, he repeated. You need a place your sister can't break into, manipulate, or monitor. I should have answered immediately. Should have said yes. Should have run to my closet and started shoving clothes into a suitcase before either of them could breathe again. Instead, I just stood there. Because leaving meant this was real in a way it hadn't fully been before. Leaving meant I was choosing a side. Leaving meant putting myself and this baby under Aaron DeLuca's protection and trusting that wasn't just another prettier kind of trap. He seemed to read every terrified thought that flashed across my face. His voice lowered, just for me. You can come willingly, he said. Or you can stay here and let them keep reaching for what's yours. But I'm not leaving you in this house after today. My chest ached. What's yours? No one in my life had ever said those words to me and meant something other than duty, debt, or sacrifice. Mama took a desperate step toward me. Naomi, don't be ridiculous. You can't go with him. I turned to her, really turned, and for the first time in my life, I let myself see her clearly. Not as my mother, not as the tired woman who raised us alone, not as someone to pity, just as a person who had seen what Bianca was doing and let it happen because it benefited her. A person who would let it keep happening if I stayed. Why not? I asked. She stared at me as if I had struck her. Because this is your home. I looked around my room, the torn open drawers, the towels on the floor, the closet hanging wide. My secrets dragged into the light and handled by hands that didn't love me. Then I looked back at her. "No," I said softly. "It really isn't." Bianca made a furious sound. "So that's it? You're just going to run to him because he looked at you twice and decided to play hero?" I should have ignored her. I didn't. I stepped out from behind Erin then, just enough to make sure she could see my face clearly. "No," I said. "I'm leaving because if I stay, you'll take everything you can reach." Her eyes flicked to my stomach. Mine did too, instinctively. And Erin saw. Of course he did. He shifted again, a subtle movement that put me partly behind him once more, and said the thing that turned the whole room into ice. "You will not touch her again." Bianca lifted her chin, all false bravado and splintering pride. "Or what?" Erin's expression didn't move at all. "Try me." A knock sounded downstairs. Then another. Heavy. Controlled. Professional. My pulse jumped. Erin's women. His people. Real. Not theory. Not threat. Bianca heard it too. So did Mama. And suddenly neither of them looked at me anymore. They looked at him. At what it meant that he had sent for backup into our house as easily as another man might order lunch. Erin inclined his head toward my closet. "Naomi," he said calmly, "you have 5 minutes." For 1 second, I thought about refusing, not because I wanted to stay, because leaving with him felt like stepping off a cliff and calling it choice. Then I looked at Bianca, at the fury in her face, at the hunger still burning under it, at the way her eyes kept finding my stomach like she could already see the future and still believed she could own it. And I knew. The cliff was here. So I bent, picked up the pregnancy test from where I'd set it on the desk, tucked it carefully into the clinic folder, and walked past my sister toward the closet. Behind me I heard the bedroom door open, women's voices, low, efficient. Then Erin, still calm enough to be frightening. "No one enters this room but her." I pulled my suitcase from the top shelf with shaking hands. And for the first time in my life, when Bianca started shouting my name, I didn't turn around. Chapter 7. I left my mother's house with 1 suitcase, a bottle of prenatal vitamins, and the sound of Bianca screaming my name behind me like she could still drag me back by force. She couldn't. That was the part she hated most. The front door shut behind us with a heavy, expensive finality that seemed to split my life into 2 clean halves. Before that sound, I had still been a daughter in that house, a sister. A girl who kept telling herself she could survive one more compromise, one more cruelty, one more humiliation, if it meant keeping the fragile shape of family intact. After that sound, I was something else. A woman carrying a mafia boss's child while his people escorted her away from the only home she had ever known. It should have felt dramatic. It felt numb. The late afternoon air hit my face sharp and cool. 2 women Erin had sent stood on either side of the front walk, both dressed plainly enough to blend in if you weren't paying attention, both carrying themselves with the same contained alertness I was starting to recognize in all his people. One of them took my suitcase without asking. The other opened the back door of the black SUV. I stopped with my hand on the edge of the door. Erin stood a few feet away on the driveway, speaking quietly into his phone. Black coat, dark shirt, no tie. His voice was low enough that I couldn't make out the words, but I didn't need to. His face said enough, controlled, cold, finished playing. He ended the call and looked at me. Not the house, not Bianca visible as a blur behind one of the upstairs windows. Me. My fingers tightened on the car door. "I can still change my mind," I said. It came out quieter than I meant it to. One of his brows lifted. "About getting in?" "About all of this." His gaze held mine for 1 long second, then dropped briefly to my stomach before rising again. "No," he said. There should have been comfort in how certain he sounded. Instead, something hot and unsettled moved through me. Because I knew what he meant. Not that I had no free will, that the baby changed everything, whether I was ready or not. I swallowed hard. That's not very reassuring. "No," he said again, "it's honest." That shut me up. Of course it did. Honesty from Erin never came wrapped in softness. He gave it to me the way other men gave commands, directly, with no attempt to make it prettier than it was. And for some reason, I trusted that more than anything my family had said to me in years. I got in the car. Erin followed a second later, sliding into the seat beside me instead of taking the front. The door shut. The world narrowed instantly to leather seats, tinted windows, the low hum of the engine, and the dangerous awareness of him too close to ignore. The SUV pulled away from the curb. I looked out the window as the house disappeared behind us. Not because I was sentimental, because I wanted to see whether it hurt. It did, just not in the way I expected. There was grief there, yes, a quiet, ugly ache for the version of me that had kept trying anyway, that had kept loving people who only saw her when they needed something. But underneath the grief was something lighter. Air. I hadn't realized how suffocating that house had become until I was breathing outside it. "You're shaking," Aaron said. I looked down. He was right. My hands were trembling in my lap hard enough that the prenatal vitamin bottle rattled against the clinic folder. "I know." He reached over without asking and took the bottle from my fingers before I dropped it. Not the folder, just the bottle. His hand brushed mine in the exchange, warm and steady and much too careful for a man who could have run my life over if he wanted to. "You should eat soon," he said. I stared at him. "Did you just tell me to eat?" He looked almost offended by the question. "You're nauseous, not dying." A startled laugh escaped me. The sound surprised both of us. Aaron's gaze flicked to my mouth for the briefest second. "There it is," I frowned. "There what is? That sound." He handed the bottle back. "I was starting to think you didn't know how to make it." The heat that rose to my face was instant and humiliatingly alive. "I know how to laugh." "Not around me, apparently." "That's because you say things like you just became my problem." One corner of his mouth moved. Not quite a smile. Something more dangerous because it was close to one. "You did." I looked away before my expression could betray me. Outside, the city rolled past in familiar blocks and intersections, but after a few minutes I realized we weren't heading toward his penthouse. "Where are we going?" "My house." My head turned back so fast my neck protested. "That's not your penthouse." "No, then what is it?" He settled back into the seat, one arm along the backrest behind me, but not touching. "The place I actually sleep." I stared at him. The idea of Aaron having a home separate from the penthouse he used for meetings and deals and curated displays of power felt strangely intimate. More intimate than him seeing me in that black dress, more intimate than the ultrasound room. It meant this wasn't temporary enough to keep at a distance. It meant he was taking me somewhere real. "I'm not moving in with you," I said. His eyes slid to mine. "You already are." My pulse kicked. "No." "Yes." "Aaron, you can keep arguing because it comforts you," he said calmly, "or you can ask better questions." I glared at him. "You are unbelievably arrogant." "Yes." The answer came so easily I almost hated how funny it was. Almost. So I asked the better question. "How long?" His gaze sharpened slightly. "Until I know you're safe." "That sounds vague on purpose." "It is." I leaned back against the seat and looked at him, really looked, because he kept doing this, answering honestly while still keeping half the map folded in his pocket. "Do you do that a lot?" "What?" "Decide things for people before they've caught up." Something unrateable crossed his face. "When it matters." It should have irritated me more than it did. Maybe it still did, a little. But the truth was, I was too tired to fight every inch of ground right now. Too tired and too aware of the ache in my body, the emotional crash that had been waiting for me since the moment Bianca found the test. I rested my head back against the leather. For a while, neither of us spoke. The silence between us was different now. Not empty, not awkward, charged. Like every unsaid thing had weight. I watched the city give way gradually to quieter streets lined with tall iron gates and old trees. Houses appeared farther apart here, set back from the road with the kind of privacy money buys when it stops caring whether anyone notices. The SUV turned through one set of gates and followed a long curved drive. My breath caught. The house wasn't a house. It was a statement. Stone and black-framed windows and clean architectural lines softened just enough by ivy and light. Not ornate, not flashy. Beautiful in the same controlled way Aaron himself was beautiful. If beautiful was the right word for something that made you instinctively lower your voice. I looked at him. "You live here?" "Yes." "Alone?" "No." My stomach dropped. "Who else?" "Staff. Security. A beat. My brother when he's in town. Not often." I relaxed a little. Not much, but enough for him to notice. His eyes flicked over my face. "What were you expecting?" I didn't answer. Because the truth was embarrassingly obvious. Women, a line of them, a trail of perfume in hallways, evidence that I was only the latest complication being stored somewhere comfortable until he decided what to do with it. Aaron seemed to read every one of those thoughts in the silence. "There's no one here you need to worry about," he said. Heat crept up my neck. I wasn't worried. He looked unconvinced. The car stopped under a covered entrance. One of his security men opened the door. Aaron got out first, then turned back and offered me his hand. I looked at it, at his long fingers, strong, steady, unyielding. Then I put my hand in his and let him help me out. That was mistake number one. Because the second my palm settled against his, something electric shot through me. Not sweet, not soft, just sharp enough to make me look up at him. Aaron felt it too. I knew he did because his eyes darkened, not with surprise but recognition. Like the thing crackling between us had been there all along, and this was just the first time neither of us could pretend it wasn't. He let go first. Good, because I wasn't sure I could have. Inside the house was quieter than I expected. Warm wood, stone floors, soft lighting, the scent of cedar and clean linen. There were traces of a life here that didn't exist in the penthouse. Books on a side table, an unfinished glass of water near a couch, a jacket thrown over the back of a chair like he sometimes came home too tired to care where things landed. It made him feel suddenly, dangerously human. A woman in her 50s appeared in the hallway, elegant in dark slacks and a cream blouse. Her eyes moved over me quickly, but not rudely, then rested on Aaron. "Your room is ready?" she said. "Not her room. Your room. Mine, apparently." Aaron nodded once. "Thank you, Elena." Her gaze came back to me, warmer now. "Would you like tea? Soup? Something light?" The kindness in her voice nearly undid me. Not because it was extravagant, because it wasn't. It sounded ordinary. I had forgotten how much ordinary kindness could hurt when you'd been starved of it. "Tea would be nice," I said. "Of course." She disappeared toward what I assumed was the kitchen. Aaron picked up my suitcase before I could protest and started down the hall. I followed him upstairs because what else was I supposed to do? Stand frozen in his foyer until the baby graduated college? The bedroom he led me to was larger than my entire downstairs at home had been. Soft gray walls, wide windows overlooking the back gardens. A fireplace, a sitting area, a bed that looked far too luxurious for the kind of sleep I doubted I'd be getting tonight. I stopped just inside the doorway. This is ridiculous. Aaron set my suitcase on the bench at the foot of the bed. "You need space. I need normal." He turned to face me. "This is normal for me." I opened my mouth, then shut it. "Fair enough. Sort of." His eyes moved over my face slowly, taking in the exhaustion I hadn't bothered trying to hide. There's a bathroom through there. Elena will bring tea. A doctor can come here tomorrow if you need anything." "I don't need a doctor to come here." "No," he agreed, "but I want one available." I folded my arms. "You keep doing that." "Doing what?" "Making it sound like your wants are facts." His gaze held mine. "Most of the time they are." I should have rolled my eyes. Instead, I asked, "And what happens if I want something different?" A beat passed. Then Aaron said, "Depends what it is." I stared at him. "There's the arrogance again. There's your attitude again." The answer startled a laugh out of me before I could stop it. Aaron's mouth shifted, the ghost of that same dangerous almost smile from the car. Then he stepped closer. Not enough to scare me, enough to make the room smaller. "You're safe here, Naomi." The words were simple. The effect was not, because I wanted to believe him. God help me. I wanted to believe him so badly, it made my throat ache. Maybe he saw that too. Maybe he saw everything. His hand lifted, slow enough to give me time to move away, and brushed one loose strand of hair back behind my ear. The touch was so gentle it felt more intimate than if he had dragged me against him. I went very still. So did he. For one suspended, dangerous second, the room narrowed to nothing but his hand near my face, my pulse racing, and the unbearable awareness of how close he stood. Then a knock sounded at the door. We both stepped back as if the sound had broken something, or saved it. Elena entered, with a tray, tea, dry toast, a small bowl of broth, and set it on the table near the window with practiced discretion that told me she had seen far more than she would ever repeat. "Try to eat a little," she said softly to me. "I will. Thank you." When she left, silence settled again, but not the same silence. This one knew too much. Aaron looked at the tray, then back at me. "Eat." Shower if you want. Rest. You make that sound like an order. It is. I exhaled slowly, too tired to fight the edge of a smile threatening my mouth. Then I looked up at him. And where will you be? His eyes met mine. Close. The word slid under my skin. Not dramatic, not romantic, just certain. Close enough to come if I called. Close enough to intervene if Bianca somehow reached for me again. Close enough to be dangerous in ways I had not even started naming. Aaron turned toward the door, then paused, one hand on the frame, and looked back at me over his shoulder. Lock the door if it makes you feel better, he said, but no one here gets to open it without your permission. My breath caught. He waited half a second, maybe for an answer, maybe just to let the words land. Then he left me alone in a room that smelled faintly like cedar and safety and him. I stood there for a long moment after the door shut. Then I looked around the room, at the untouched tea, at the suitcase at the foot of the bed, at the life I had been dragged out of and the new one I had stepped into without ever meaning to. My hand found my stomach on instinct, still flat, still quiet, still mine, for now. And maybe, if I was very careful, very smart, and very lucky, for longer than Bianca ever intended. I moved to the window and looked out over the darkening gardens below. Somewhere in this house, Aaron was close. That should not have made me feel steadier, but it did. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. Chapter 8. I woke up in Aaron's house choking on Bianca's hands. Not really, but in the dream, they were real enough. Her nails dug into my wrist while Mama stood behind her saying nothing, absolutely nothing, just watching with that tight, frightened face she wore when she wanted to call herself helpless instead of guilty. Bianca kept smiling while she pulled, smiling while she said, "Give her to me. Give her to me. Give me what's mine. 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 Mine." I came up hard out of sleep with a broken sound caught in my throat, one hand clamped over my stomach before I was fully awake, the other fisted in the sheets. The room was dark except for the low glow from the fireplace burned down to embers and the pale silver of moonlight across the floor. For one wild second, I didn't know where I was. My heart hammered so hard it hurt. Not my room, not Mama's house, not the life I'd yesterday morning. Aaron's house, Aaron's room down the hall. Aaron's people at the doors, Aaron's voice in my head telling me no one here gets to open this door without my permission. I sucked in a breath and tried to steady it. Failed. The nightmare clung to me, sticky and mean. My skin felt damp, my throat burned. The sheets were twisted around my legs like restraints. I pushed them away and sat up too fast, dizziness tilting the room for a second before it settled. It was a dream, I whispered. But my body didn't care. My hands were still shaking, my chest still too tight, my stomach roiling with that awful mix of panic and nausea that made everything inside me feel fragile. I threw my legs over the side of the bed and stumbled for the bathroom. By the time I made it to the sink, I was dry heaving more than anything else. One hand braced on the marble, the other wrapped protectively over my middle. Tears burned behind my eyes from force and fear and exhaustion. This was ridiculous. I hated crying, hated being weak, hated that pregnancy already seemed determined to strip every illusion of control right off me. I splashed cold water on my face and looked up, pale, wild-eyed, hair tangled, the faintest yellowed shadow still lingering where Bianca had struck me. I looked like exactly what I was, a woman in over her head. A soft knock sounded at the bedroom door. My whole body went still. Not pounding, not forceful, just two quiet taps. Naomi. Aaron, even muffled through the wood, I knew his voice immediately. Low, controlled, awake. My pulse kicked strangely. Not fear this time. Something more confusing because relief was mixed into it. I didn't answer. I should have. I knew that. But I was standing barefoot in his bathroom at what had to be the middle of the night, shaky and half sick and too close to tears. And I suddenly couldn't bear the idea of him hearing any of it. The silence stretched. Then, Naomi. Still calm, still quiet. Open the door. Not a request. Not exactly an order either. More like a man who already knew something was wrong and had no intention of walking away from it. I closed my eyes. You heard me? I asked, hating how rough my voice sounded. Yes. Of course he had. This house was too quiet for secrets. I'm fine. A pause. Then, no, you're not. God, there was something deeply unfair about a man who could sound that certain at 2 a.m. without raising his voice once. I looked at myself one more time in the mirror, as if maybe in the last 5 seconds I'd magically started resembling someone capable of dignity. No such luck. I went to the door and unlocked it. Aaron was standing there in dark lounge pants and a black t-shirt, sleeves hugging his arms, hair slightly mussed like he had either been trying to sleep or had run his hand through it too many times. He took one look at me and his face changed. Not dramatically. It just went still in that dangerous way I already knew too well. "You're pale," he said. I crossed my arms over myself. "Thank you. That helps." His eyes flicked over my face, took in the tear brightness I was trying to hide, the tension in my shoulders, the fact that I was still barefoot and braced like I expected the floor to move. "Nightmare?" he asked. I hated that he was right. "Yes." He nodded once, like that confirmed something for him rather than surprised him. "Move." I blinked. "What? Move?" I should have argued. Instead, I stepped back and Aaron walked into the room like he belonged there, which, in a way, he did. This was his house, his hall, his night interrupted because the woman carrying his child had woken up half drowning in panic. That last thought made my pulse jump again. He turned toward me once he was inside, gaze moving briefly to the bathroom, then the bed, then back to my face. "Sit down. You really love telling me what to do. You really love pretending you're okay when you're not." I opened my mouth to throw something sharp back at him. Then the room tilted faintly again, and I had to catch the dresser with one hand. Aaron crossed the space between us immediately. 1 second he was by the bed. The next his hand was around my elbow, steadying me. The contact burned. Not hot exactly. Not sexual. Just immediate and total in a way that made my breath hitch because my body noticed him before my brain could catch up. "I've got you," he said. 3 simple words. My throat ached. He guided me to the edge of the bed and only let go once I was sitting. Then he crouched in front of me, bringing his face level with mine, and for the first time since this started, I understood something dangerous. Aaron was even more unsettling when he was gentle. "What happened?" he asked. I looked away. Nothing happened. His voice went flat. "Don't." I dragged in a breath. "I had a nightmare." "About?" I laughed once, weak and humorless. "Take your pick." His jaw flexed. "Bianca?" he asked. I said nothing. That was answer enough. Aaron was quiet for a beat, studying me with that same focused intensity that always made me feel like he was seeing more than I meant to show. Then he said, "Did you throw up?" I frowned. That is a weird pivot. "Did you?" "A little." His expression hardened. "How many times today?" I stared at him. "You cannot be serious." "How many?" The answer was irritatingly easy to give because he sounded like he wouldn't move until I did. "Twice," I muttered. His eyes narrowed slightly. "Did you eat the soup Elena brought?" I looked away. That was apparently answer enough, too. Aaron exhaled slowly through his nose, the sound just shy of annoyed. "You can't carry a baby on stubbornness." I folded my arms tighter. "Watch me." His mouth almost moved. Almost. Instead, he stood and crossed to the tray by the window, where the tea had gone cold and the toast sat mostly untouched. He looked at it, then at me. "This isn't enough anyway. It was enough earlier. It's not earlier now." He picked up the house phone by the bed and dialed without asking me. I stared at him. "What are you doing?" "Fixing the part where you think dry toast counts as nutrition. It's 2 a.m. "Yes." He waited while whoever answered on the other end spoke. "Tea. Fresh, crackers, fruit, and something bland with protein." A beat. "Now." He hung up. I stared harder. "You just ordered food like we're in a hotel." His gaze returned to me. "No, in a hotel they'd be slower." I really wanted to stay annoyed. It was difficult when he said things like that with a completely straight face. "You're impossible," I muttered. "Yes." There it was again, his infuriating habit of agreeing with every insult that should have slowed him down and somehow using it as momentum. Silence settled for a moment. I watched him watching me. "You didn't have to come in here," I said quietly. "I know. You could have let me pretend I was fine until morning." I could have. He leaned one shoulder against the wall, arms crossing over his chest. I chose not to. The room felt too small again, not because he was crowding me, because he wasn't, because he had left space for me to breathe and still somehow filled all of it. I looked down at my hands. "I'm not used to this." "To what?" I let out a shaky breath. "Someone noticing." The words were out before I could stop them. Embarrassing. Too honest. Too revealing. I wanted to take them back immediately. Aaron didn't rescue me by pretending he hadn't heard. He just said, very quietly, "I noticed the second you got out of the car that first night." I looked up. He held my gaze. "The bruise on your face," he said, "the way you kept your shoulders too tight, the way you were scared of giving the wrong answer before I'd asked a question." His voice lowered even more. I noticed. My chest hurt. I hated that those words could do this to me, make me feel seen and furious and fragile all at once, because I wanted them, because I believed him, because some starving part of me had spent years pretending it didn't need exactly this kind of attention from anyone. A knock sounded at the door. Aaron went to get the tray himself. Elena stood outside in a robe and slippers, her silver-streaked hair pulled back, face lined with concern she was too discreet to make obvious. "I brought a little more than you asked for," she told him. "Good." Her eyes flicked to me past his shoulder. "Honey, try the apple slices first. Then the crackers." "Honey." Something in me nearly cracked right down the middle. "Thank you," I managed. She gave me a small nod and disappeared down the hall. Aaron shut the door with the tray in hand and brought it over to the bed. Fruit, crackers, plain yogurt, warm tea, and a slice of toast that smelled faintly buttery. He set it down on the nightstand and looked at me expectantly. I sighed. "You're going to stand there until I eat, aren't you?" "Yes." I picked up a cracker just to spite him with how reluctantly I did it. He did not look even slightly chastened. After a few bites, the nausea eased enough for me to breathe without that sick curl in my stomach. Aaron stayed where he was, close but not too close, watching in that steady way of his that made me feel both protected and painfully exposed. When I reached for the tea, my hand trembled again. He noticed, of course. He took the cup from me before I could spill it and held it out once he had a better grip on the saucer. I looked at him, at the enormous, dangerous man standing in my bedroom in the middle of the night, holding my tea like it was a sacred object. "This is absurd," I whispered. His eyes met mine over the rim of the cup. Probably. I should not have found that endearing. I absolutely did. I took the tea carefully and sipped. Warmth slid down my throat, settled something raw. Aaron watched until I'd had enough to put the cup down again. Then he said, "Better?" "A little." "Good." He moved then, not away, but to the armchair near the fireplace. He sat, elbows on knees, hands loosely clasped, looking for all the world, like he had simply decided his night now belonged in this room. "You don't have to stay," I said. "Yes, I do." The answer came without hesitation. I frowned. "Why?" His gaze lifted to mine, calm and direct. "Because if you wake up like that again, I want to be here before your panic tells you you're alone." The words hit me so hard I had to look away. No one had ever said something like that to me. Not Mama, not Bianca, not anyone. The room blurred for half a second, and I blinked hard before tears could gather. I hated crying in front of people. I hated it even more in front of him. Aaron saw anyway. I was beginning to think nothing escaped him when it came to me. He leaned back slightly in the chair, giving me room instead of reaching for me, and somehow that restraint made everything worse. "I'm trying very hard not to make this harder on you," he said quietly. I let out a shaky laugh. "By doing what? Staring me into emotional collapse?" A faint shadow of a smile touched his mouth. "Maybe?" The answer was so dry I laughed again, small, startled, real. Aaron's gaze softened, barely, enough. Then his face changed, not because of me, because his phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, and whatever he saw pulled every trace of warmth right out of him. My stomach tightened. "What is it?" He stood. "Bianca." Of course, even from another house, another bed, another hour of the night, she still knew how to reach in and claw at the edges of things. "What now?" Aaron's jaw flexed once. "She's talking." Cold prickled over my skin. "Talking to who?" He looked at me. "Someone she thinks can pressure me." The room suddenly felt colder than the moonlight on the floor. "What does that mean?" "It means," he said, sliding the phone back into his pocket, "your sister just decided to make this public in the worst possible direction." My hand moved to my stomach on instinct. Aaron's eyes followed the gesture. Then he looked back up at me, and whatever I saw in his face stole the breath right out of me. Not fear, not hesitation. Decision. "Get some sleep if you can," he said, "because tomorrow I stop being patient with her." He turned for the door, then stopped, came back, and before I could brace for it, he bent and pressed his hand, warm, broad, devastatingly steady, over mine where it rested on my stomach. Just for a second, just long enough to make my whole body go still. She doesn't get to touch what's mine by hurting you, he said softly. Then he removed his hand and walked out, leaving me breathless in the dark with tea on my tongue, fear in my chest, and one terrible, impossible thought pulsing through me long after the door shut behind him. I didn't know whether Aaron's claim should have terrified me more, or whether the most dangerous part was how safe I felt when he said it. Chapter 9. My phone started exploding before the sun came up. Not vibrating, not buzzing, exploding. I woke to the sound of it rattling violently against the nightstand, the screen lighting up the dark room in sharp flashes over and over again. For one disoriented second, I thought it was part of another nightmare, another version of Bianca clawing her way into my space. Then I saw the notifications. Dozens. Missed calls, texts, unknown numbers. And then, my stomach dropped so hard it hurt. A headline. My name, Aaron's name, and the word pregnant in bold like it had teeth. I sat up too fast, grabbing the phone with shaking hands. The article loaded before I could stop it. Aaron DeLuca's secret heir? Fiancé hides pregnancy scandal. Insider claims betrayal inside the family. My vision tunneled. No. There was a photo, grainy, cropped, the clinic. Me, my shirt slightly lifted, the outline of the ultrasound wand visible against my stomach, and standing just behind me, Bianca. But the caption said Bianca DeLuca spotted at private appointment amid rumors of pregnancy. They thought it was her. They thought she was the one carrying his child. My breath came too fast. My fingers tightened around the phone until my knuckles went white. She did it. She actually did it. She took my pregnancy and made it hers. The door opened without a knock. I didn't even flinch. Aaron stepped inside already dressed, already alert, already fully in control of a situation I had only just woken up to. His eyes went straight to me, to the phone in my hand, to my face. You saw it. Not a question. I swallowed hard. She leaked it. Yes. The single word landed like a bullet. I shoved the phone toward him. They think it's her. I know. You know? I've known for the last 40 minutes. 40 minutes. 40 minutes while I was asleep, unaware that my life had just been dragged into something bigger, uglier, and far more dangerous than anything Bianca had done inside that house. What are you doing about it? I demanded. His gaze sharpened slightly, handling it. That's not an answer, Aaron. It's the only one you're getting right now. My heart pounded. That's my life out there. And now it's my problem too, he said evenly. I froze. Not because of the words, because of the tone. There was no irritation in it, no dismissal, no distance, just fact, and something underneath it that felt dangerously close to ownership. I pushed to my feet, the room swaying for a second before I steadied. She's lying to the entire world. She's going to show up somewhere next, pretending. She won't. The certainty in his voice cut through my spiral like a blade. I stared at him. How do you know? Because I've already shut down the next step. My pulse stuttered. What did you do? He held my gaze. And for a second, just a second, I saw it. The part of Aaron that didn't live in rooms like this. The part that operated in shadows and consequences and quiet decisions that never made it to daylight. Enough, he said. Cold slid down my spine. Aaron, Naomi? My name, low and controlled, stopped me. Do you trust me? He asked. The question hit harder than anything else, because the answer should have been easy. No, I barely knew him. He was dangerous. He made decisions without asking. He moved like a man used to control and consequence. And yet, I thought about last night, the tea, the chair by the fireplace, the way he said he wanted to be there before my panic convinced me I was alone. My throat tightened. Yes, I said. The word surprised both of us. Aaron's eyes flickered, something unreadable moving through them before his expression settled again. Then let me handle her, he said. I nodded. Because I had already crossed the line the second I left that house. Because trusting him felt like stepping onto unstable ground, and somehow also the only solid thing under my feet. Okay, I said quietly. Something in his posture shifted, not softer. Just aligned. Get dressed, he said. You're not staying in this room today. My brows pulled together. Where am I going? With me. That sounds like a terrible idea. It's the safest one. I let out a slow breath. You really don't do compromise, do you? Not when it comes to you. My heart did something strange at that. I ignored it. Fine, I muttered. Give me 10 minutes. I'll be downstairs. He turned and left without another word. I stood there for a second, staring at the door after him. Then I looked back at my phone, at the article, at the comments already flooding in, at strangers dissecting a life they didn't understand, assigning motives, picking sides, turning something fragile and terrifying into entertainment. My hand moved to my stomach. "They don't know it's you," I whispered, and somehow that made it worse, because it meant Bianca still had room to maneuver, still had control of the narrative, still had the power to twist this into something even uglier if Aaron didn't shut her down fast enough. I dressed quickly, simple, clean, something that didn't scream vulnerability, and forced myself to eat a few bites of the food Elena had brought earlier. By the time I made it downstairs, the house felt different. Not tense, focused. Men moved through the halls with quiet purpose, phones in hands, voices low, eyes sharp. War. Not loud, not messy, organized. Aaron stood near the front of the house, speaking to two men in suits. He didn't look up when I entered, but I felt the exact moment he registered me anyway. "Give us a minute," he said to them. They left immediately. Of course they did. He turned to me. His gaze swept over me once, taking in everything. My clothes, my face, the fact that I had eaten at least something. "You ready?" "No," I said honestly. "But I'm here." His mouth shifted slightly. Approval. It shouldn't have mattered. "It did. Stay close to me today," he said. "I wasn't planning on wandering off." "Good." He stepped toward me, close enough that I could feel the heat of him, the gravity of his presence, pulling everything else into the background. Then his hand came up. Not rough, not claiming, just deliberate. He brushed his thumb lightly under my eye, wiping away something I hadn't realized was still there. Tears. My breath caught. "Don't let her make you feel small," he said quietly. Something inside me tightened painfully. "I'm trying not to." "Try harder." I let out a weak laugh. "That's your advice?" "It's your reality." Before I could answer, his phone buzzed again. He glanced at it, then his eyes went cold. "She's here." The words dropped like a stone. My stomach twisted. Here? At the gate. Of course she was. Of course Bianca wouldn't wait, wouldn't hide, wouldn't retreat. She never had. "What is she doing?" I asked, demanding to see me. My pulse pounded. "And you're going to let her?" Aaron looked at me, really looked. Then he said something that sent a sharp, dangerous thrill through me. No. Relief hit first, then something darker, something that recognized exactly what that meant. "She won't stop," I said. "I don't expect her to." "Then what are you going to do?" Aaron's gaze didn't waver. "I'm going to end this before she turns it into something bigger." The air between us shifted. I knew what he meant. Not violence, not chaos. Control. Total. Final. A knock sounded at the door. One of his men stepped inside. "She's refusing to leave." Aaron nodded once. "Hold her there." The man disappeared. Aaron looked back at me. "You're staying inside." My chin lifted. No, his brows drew together slightly. "No, I'm not hiding while she stands out there pretending to be me. The words came out sharper than I intended, more emotional, more exposed. Aaron studied me for a long second. Then, "Fine." My breath caught. "But you don't speak unless I tell you to," he added. I hesitated. Every instinct I had told me to push back, to argue, to refuse. Instead, okay, because this wasn't my world, not yet. And if I stepped into it wrong, I could make things worse. Aaron held my gaze for one more beat. Then he reached for me. Not my hand, my wrist. His fingers wrapped around it, firm and grounding, and for a second everything in me went still. "Stay with me," he said. "I am." He led me toward the door, toward Bianca, toward whatever came next. And as the front doors opened and the morning light spilled in, I realized something that should have terrified me more than it did. I wasn't just caught in Aaron's world anymore. I was walking into it beside him, and for the first time since this started, I wasn't the one being dragged. Chapter 10. Bianca looked beautiful enough to ruin lives. That was the first thing I thought when Aaron opened the front doors and the morning light hit her. She stood at the bottom of the stone steps in a cream dress that probably cost more than my first semester of nursing school, dark sunglasses pushed up into her hair, mouth painted the soft pink men mistook for innocence. Two photographers lingered just beyond the gate, pretending not to stare too hard, their long lenses angled like weapons. A black SUV idled at the curb. Her hair moved lightly in the breeze. If you didn't know her, she looked like a wronged woman fighting for her future. If you did know her, you could see the rage underneath the polish. the desperation. The way she held her shoulders too still when she was 1 second away from losing control. The guard at the gate stepped back as Aaron and I came out onto the front landing. Bianca saw me, and for one bare second her face cracked. Not much, just enough. Enough for me to know she had expected Aaron to face her alone. Enough for me to know she had not wanted me at his side where he could not pretend I was irrelevant. Then the crack vanished. She smiled. "Naomi," she said, voice carrying up the steps. "There you are. Like we were sisters meeting for brunch. Like she hadn't ripped my room apart. Like she hadn't leaked my pregnancy to the press and dressed it in her own name before breakfast." Aaron didn't let go of my wrist. Good. Because I was suddenly very aware of the cameras at the gate, the sunlight on my face, the life inside me, and the fact that every ugly thing Bianca had ever done to me had happened in private. This was different. This had witnesses. Bianca climbed the first 2 steps before one of Aaron's men moved, not touching her, not dramatic. Just a quiet repositioning that blocked the path higher. She stopped, her smile sharpened. "Seriously?" Aaron's voice was flat. "You weren't invited." Bianca folded her arms. "And yet here I am." "You won't be for long." The wind shifted. Somewhere behind us, a bird called once from the trees. The photographers beyond the gate kept pretending not to take mental notes on every second of this. Bianca's gaze flicked to my hand in Aaron's, then rose to my face. "You look tired," she said. I said nothing. Because Aaron had told me not to speak unless he told me to. And because I knew Bianca. Silence would get under her skin faster than anything I could throw back. Sure enough, her smile thinned. "I came to clear up a misunderstanding," she said, directing the words at Aaron, but keeping her eyes on me. A private one, the kind that should never have left family walls. Aaron's fingers tightened once around my wrist, not enough to hurt, enough to remind me he was there. "This stopped being private when you sold a lie to the press," he said. Bianca let out a soft, dismissive laugh. "Sold? That's dramatic even for you. It's accurate." She dropped her arms. I was protecting us. Something hot and bitter climbed my throat. Us. There it was again, the word people used right before they carved me up and called it sacrifice. Aaron's expression didn't move. "There is no us." Her face changed then. Finally, the perfect mask slipped just enough for fury to show through. "You were prepared to marry me." "I was prepared to evaluate a contract," he said. "You confused that with intimacy." Bianca's mouth went white around the edges. Behind the gate, one of the photographers shifted subtly, lens lifting a fraction higher. Aaron noticed. Of course he did. He turned his head slightly. "Take their cameras if they move another inch." One of his security men nodded and headed for the gate. The photographers froze. Bianca laughed, but the sound wobbled. "You can't control every angle, Aaron." "No," he said. "Just the important ones." His thumb brushed once over the inside of my wrist. A tiny movement. Private. Grounding. The cameras might have missed it. Bianca didn't. Her eyes dropped there and something ugly flashed over her face. Jealousy. Raw. Instant. Humiliatingly visible. I should not have felt satisfaction from that. I did anyway. Bianca looked back at me. "You really think this ends well for you?" Aaron's voice cut across the question before I could react. "Address me or leave." She snapped her head toward him. "Why? Because she suddenly matters more now that she's useful?" The words hit harder than I expected. Not because I believed them. Because some bruised, stupid part of me had spent so many years being useful and not much else that hearing it out loud still hurt. Aaron's grip on my wrist loosened, then shifted. His hand slid down from my wrist to my palm, fingers threading through mine with a kind of slow deliberateness that made my breath catch. The gesture was not romantic. It was not gentle either. It was clear, public, final. Bianca stared at our joined hands as if he had struck her. When Aaron spoke, his voice was almost soft. "That's the mistake you keep making," he said. "You think value only exists when you can exploit it." The silence that followed was enormous. I could hear my own heartbeat, the distant hum of the idling SUV at the curb, the click of one photographer's lens before a guard barked sharply and the sound stopped. Bianca recovered first, because of course she did. "You don't know her," she said. "You saw a bruise and a trembling act and decided to play savior." Aaron's fingers tightened through mine. "She doesn't need a savior." Bianca's brows arched. "Then what is this?" For 1 second, I thought he might not answer. Then he said, "A boundary you are never crossing again." The words dropped between us like a lock ceiling. Bianca's nostrils flared. You don't get to take my family from me. And that was almost funny. Almost. My lips parted before I could stop myself. Aaron felt it, glanced at me once, and I saw the exact second he decided not to silence me. So I spoke. You mean the family you used me to save? Bianca's eyes snapped to mine. There she is, she said softly. I was wondering when you'd stop hiding behind him. I held her gaze. I'm not hiding. No? Her smile returned, vicious and polished. Then tell him how this ends. Tell him what happens when this gets out properly. When people start asking questions. When they realize the woman carrying his child is not the woman he announced to the world. Aaron's head turned slightly toward me. Not enough to pull attention away from Bianca. Enough to tell me he was listening. I swallowed. Because she was right about one thing. This could still get uglier. A lot uglier. Aaron's name on headlines was one thing. My name attached to scandal, pregnancy, family betrayal, maybe even accusations of sleeping with my sister's fiancé on purpose, that was another. Bianca saw the flicker of fear cross my face and smiled wider. There it is, she murmured. That's what you should be afraid of. Aaron stepped down one stair. Just one. Bianca stopped smiling. When this gets out properly, he said, voice carrying cleanly down the stone steps, it will get out exactly once, in my version, with documents, dates, proof, and every message you sent asking doctors and assistants how to fake a pregnancy without leaving a trail. The color drained from Bianca's face. Even I went still. She had done that? Of course she had. You're bluffing, she said. Aaron looked bored. I never bluff. Her breathing changed. Just a little too fast now. A little too shallow. For the first time since she'd arrived, she looked like a woman realizing the ground beneath her expensive heels might not hold. Mama's voice suddenly floated from behind us. Please. I turned. She stood just inside the open doorway, one hand braced against the frame, pale and shaken and suddenly much older than she had looked yesterday. She must have arrived while the focus stayed on Bianca. Or perhaps she had been there longer, too afraid to step fully into the scene she helped create. Please, she said again, eyes darting between Aaron and Bianca and me. Don't do this out here. Out here. Not don't do this. Not stop. Not Naomi. Come inside. Just not out here. I should have expected that. It still hurt anyway. Bianca latched onto it instantly. Exactly. We can handle this privately. Aaron looked at Mama for one cold second, then back to Bianca. No. Mama's mouth trembled. Mr. DeLuca, I am begging you. She made mistakes, yes, but she is my daughter. I laughed. I couldn't help it. The sound came out low and brittle and far more broken than I wanted. Mama looked at me like I'd slapped her. I tilted my head. Which one? Her face crumpled. Not enough to make me feel guilty, just enough to make me tired. Aaron turned slightly, shielding part of me from the view of the gate. Go inside, Mrs. Harper. She didn't move. Bianca did. Don't talk to her like that, she snapped. You leaked a pregnancy that wasn't yours, Aaron said. You don't get to dictate tone. Bianca took another step upward before his security blocked her again. It is mine. The words cracked through the air so violently that even the wind seemed to stop for a second. My whole body went cold. Aaron went still beside me, the kind of stillness that always meant danger. Bianca seemed to realize she had said too much the second it left her mouth. But she was too far gone to pull it back. I mean, she started, then stopped, then lifted her chin in that same awful defiance she always wore when cornered. It was supposed to be mine. There it was, not hidden, not framed pretty, not softened for anyone's comfort. The truth. Ugly and breathing in broad daylight. My hand tightened in Aaron's on instinct. He felt it. His gaze slid to me once, brief and unreadable, then back to Bianca. You just said everything I needed you to say. He said quietly. Fear flashed over her face. Real fear this time. What does that mean? It means you're done. The words hit with an eerie finality that made my skin prickle. Bianca tried to laugh, but it came out wrong. You can't erase me because she cried in front of you. Aaron's eyes darkened. No, he said. I'm erasing you because you mistook cruelty for strategy. The front gate buzzed. A black sedan rolled through, sleek and quiet. Bianca turned sharply at the sound. So did Mama. I looked too, trying to understand the significance, but Aaron's expression changed before the car had even stopped. Not surprise. Expectation. The driver's door opened first, then the rear. A woman stepped out in a navy suit with a leather portfolio tucked under one arm. Mid-40s, composed, expensive, not remotely impressed by the size of the house or the tension in the air. Bianca stared. "Who the hell is that?" Aaron answered without looking at her. "My attorney." My pulse jumped. Bianca's face went blank, then white. The woman reached the foot of the steps, nodded once to Aaron, and only then glanced toward Bianca with the kind of professional neutrality that felt much worse than open disgust. "I have the injunction paperwork," she said. The word hit like ice water. Injunction. Mama made a small, horrified sound. Bianca laughed again, but now it sounded cracked around the edges. "An injunction? Against me? For what?" The attorney opened the portfolio, calm as a knife. Harassment, unlawful access to private medical information, attempted coercion, and defamation-related claims pending formal filing. Bianca actually took a step back. I'd never seen her do that, not once in my life. "This is insane," she said. "She's my sister." The attorney glanced at me briefly, then back to Bianca. "That relationship does not grant you access to her body, her pregnancy, or her records." Bianca looked at Aaron like she wanted him to contradict it, to soften it, to rescue her from the humiliation of hearing her own behavior translated into legal language on a morning where she had expected to control the narrative. He did none of those things. Instead, he said, "Read it." The attorney began. Every word sounded clean, professional, precise, and devastating. No contact, no entry, no media statements, no representation implied or explicit regarding the pregnancy, no approach within a stated distance from me, Aaron's home, or any medical facility associated with my care. Bianca's face emptied as the list went on. Mama was crying quietly now. I felt nothing. Or maybe I felt too much all at once. Vindication. Shock, grief, a strange, guilty relief that someone had finally put language around what Bianca did instead of asking me to absorb it for the sake of peace. When the attorney finished, Bianca looked at me. Not Aaron, not the paperwork, me. And for the first time in years, I saw no superiority there, no easy dominance, just hatred sharpened by loss. "This is because of you," she said. Aaron's grip on my hand tightened once, warning and grounding all at once. But I didn't need him to answer for me this time. I stepped down one stair, just one. Enough to bring myself slightly forward without leaving his side. "No," I said, "it's because of you." Bianca stared at me. I went on because I was tired of swallowing broken glass and calling it loyalty. "You sent me to him because you thought my body was easier to use than your own. You hit me. You went through my room. You leaked my pregnancy and tried to wear it like one of your dresses." My voice shook once, then steadied. "This is not happening to you. You made it happen." Mama sobbed quietly behind us. Bianca's mouth parted, closed. Then she looked at Aaron, and I saw the last desperate angle forming behind her eyes. Fine. If she couldn't control me, maybe she would try to wound him. "You really think this ends with paperwork?" she asked him softly. "You think she won't hate you too once she realizes you've trapped her just as neatly as I tried to?" The words struck somewhere tender because they were aimed well. Aaron didn't react, not visibly, but I did, because part of me had thought it, in quieter moments, in the dark, in the gap between his protectiveness and his control. Bianca saw it flash over my face and smiled. "There you are." But before she could push further, Aaron finally turned fully toward me. And in front of all of them, Bianca, Mama, the attorney, the guards, the quiet predators with cameras outside the gate, he released my hand only to place his palm low at my back. Warm, steady, possessive in a way that should have terrified me more than it did. Then he said, looking only at me, "You are free to walk away from me whenever you choose." The world seemed to pause. I stared at him. He held my gaze and kept going. "But you will not walk back into people who hurt you and call it freedom." My throat closed. Because Bianca had just offered me the oldest trap in my life, distrust protection because control can wear beautiful faces. And Aaron had answered it without denying what he was. Not soft, not harmless, not easy, just clear. When I looked back at Bianca, the triumph she'd expected to see in my face wasn't there. Something else was. And she knew it. Aaron's attorney stepped forward then, offering the paperwork for service. Bianca didn't take it. One of the guards did. Mama covered her mouth with shaking fingers. The wind moved again, stirring the trees, the hem of Bianca's dress, the edges of the papers that would finally put a line where none had existed before. Bianca looked at me one last time. "If you stay with him," she said, voice low and poisonous, "don't pretend you chose love over me." I held her gaze. "I didn't choose love over you," I said softly. The truth landed heavy between us. I chose myself. For the first time in my life, Bianca had no answer. Chapter 11. The second the front doors closed behind us, my legs stopped pretending they were steady. It happened all at once. The adrenaline that had held me upright on the steps, the anger that had kept my voice sharp, the ugly, bright satisfaction of finally saying something Bianca could not twist into silence. It all burned through me too fast, leaving nothing but shaking hands and a hollow feeling under my ribs so deep it felt like I had been scooped out from the inside. I made it 3 steps into Aaron's foyer before the clinic folder slid from my fingers and hit the floor. Papers spilled. The sound was small. Still, it felt catastrophic. Aaron stopped beside me. "Naomi?" "I'm fine." The lie came automatically, brittle and useless. I bent to grab the papers and nearly lost my balance when the room tipped sideways. Aaron caught my elbow before I hit the floor. Not hard, not dramatic. Just there, exactly when my body failed me. "I said I'm fine," I snapped. His hand tightened just enough to keep me upright. "No." That one word should not have had the power to crack me open. It did, because I was not fine. Because my mother had stood in that doorway and begged for Bianca's comfort before she ever asked for mine. Because Bianca had looked at me like I was still something she could own if she just pressed hard enough. Because Aaron had put lawyers and guards and lines in the around me so fast, I still hadn't caught up to what any of it meant. Most of all because when I said I chose myself out there on those steps, some hidden part of me had expected lightning to strike, or guilt to swallow me whole, or regret. Instead, there had only been silence, and I did not know what to do with the fact that it felt good. My throat tightened. Aaron saw it happen. Of course he did. He bent, picked up the folder himself, and set it on the entry table before turning back to me. His gaze moved over my face once, sharp and assessing, then to the staircase. "Come on." I let out a breath that was almost a laugh. "You really do say that a lot." "Yes." The answer was so flat I should have rolled my eyes. Instead, I let him guide me toward the stairs with one hand at my back, warm and steady and much too aware-making. I could feel every place his palm touched through my sweater. It should have felt like pressure, like control. Instead, it felt like the opposite of falling. That scared me more than anything that had happened outside. In the bedroom, the quiet hit hard. No cameras, no Bianca. No mama crying like grief excused what she had allowed. Just the muted crackle of the fire and the soft gray walls and the ridiculous calm of a room that didn't care whether my whole life had just been dragged into daylight. Aaron shut the door behind us. The click of it echoed through me. I turned toward him and opened my mouth to say something sharp, something defensive, something that would buy me a little distance before I did something humiliating, and burst into tears instead. Not pretty tears. Not movie tears. Nothing elegant. My face crumpled like I was 10 years old and had skinned both knees on gravel, and then the sob hit so hard it bent me. I hated it instantly. Hated the sound, hated the weakness, hated that it was happening in front of him of all people. "I'm sorry," I choked out, which was stupid, because what exactly was I apologizing for? Crying? Existing? Bleeding emotion all over the polished edges of his controlled little world? Aaron crossed the room in 2 steps, then stopped. Not touching me right away, just standing close enough that I could feel the heat of him while he gave me the one thing no one ever had when I fell apart. Choice. "Do you want me to touch you?" he asked. The question hit me so hard I almost forgot to cry. I looked up at him through wet lashes, stunned. "What?" His expression stayed unreadable, but his voice was low and steady. "Do you want me to touch you, Naomi?" Nobody had ever asked me that when I was hurting. Bianca grabbed, Mama fussed. The few men I had let close enough to comfort me in the past had assumed. Aaron asked. That somehow made it worse, or better, or both. I laughed through my tears, a broken little sound. "You are a very strange man." One corner of his mouth moved, barely. That wasn't an answer. I dragged in a shaking breath, then nodded. Yes, that was all he needed. Aaron pulled me against him with a care that almost undid me more than if he had done it roughly. One arm came around my back, the other braced at the back of my head, not forcing, just holding. Solid. Warm. Immovable. I buried my face against his chest and cried. I cried for the house, for the betrayal, for the baby, for the years I spent being useful and quiet and good, while Bianca took and Mama justified, and I kept telling myself family meant enduring whatever they did to me because love was supposed to hurt. Aaron said nothing for a long time. He just held me through the worst of it, one hand moving once, just once, slowly down my back like he wasn't trying to soothe me so much as remind my body that it had somewhere to land. By the time I could breathe without sobbing, my face was hot and swollen and pressed into a shirt that probably cost more than my car would have, and I had fully humiliated myself in front of the most composed man I had ever met. "Sorry," I muttered again into his chest. His voice rumbled low above me. "If you apologize one more time for crying, I'm going to get offended." A startled sound escaped me. Half laugh, half broken hiccup. I pulled back just enough to look up at him. "You?" "Yes, how tragic. Deeply." Despite everything, despite the tears still clinging to my lashes, I smiled. Small, fragile, real. Aaron looked down at me with an expression I could not read at all. That was somehow worse than the dangerous ones. He lifted his hand and wiped one tear I had missed from under my eye with his thumb. The touch was gentle enough to hurt. Then he stepped back, first. Thank God, because if he hadn't, I was not entirely sure I would have. I wiped at my face with both hands and looked away. "This is awful. You standing up to her wasn't awful." "No. This part?" I gestured vaguely at my face. "The emotional collapse. Very unattractive." Aaron was quiet for exactly 1 beat too long. Then, that would matter if I found attractive things difficult to deal with. Heat shot through me so fast it felt like a slap. I stared at him. He stared back. Calm. Steady, completely serious. My mouth opened, closed. Then I said the only thing I could think of. "That was an insane thing to say to me right now." "Yes." The answer was instant. My laugh came out weak and incredulous. "You're unbelievable." "So I've heard." I should not have wanted to laugh more. I did. It helped a little. Enough to let me move away and sit on the edge of the bed before my knees gave out again. Aaron stayed standing for a moment, watching me with that same unnerving attention, then crossed to the sideboard where someone, Elena probably, because she seemed to anticipate my needs before I did, had left a glass pitcher of water and 2 clean tumblers. He poured one and handed it to me. I took it gratefully. My fingers brushed his. That awareness was there again. Sharp, immediate, too alive. I drank half the glass without stopping. Aaron waited until I set it down before speaking. "You did well." I looked at him over the rim. "On the steps?" "Yes, she almost got to me. She did get to you." His tone stayed matter-of-fact. "You still didn't let her win." I absorbed that in silence. Because it was true. Because I was so used to thinking strength meant not feeling the blow at all that I had never learned how to count surviving it as victory. Aaron leaned one hip against the dresser, arms folding over his chest. Bianca wanted 3 things today. Access to me, control of the story, and proof she could still make you fold. A pause. She left without any of them. The satisfaction that moved through me then was slow and dark and very unlike the woman I had been a week ago. Maybe I was still that woman. Maybe I was just finally done pretending I didn't have teeth. "And now?" I asked. Aaron's expression hardened slightly. "Now she escalates differently." My stomach tightened. "Meaning?" "She'll try to use people who matter to you." I looked down at the glass in my hands. "Mama. School. Any friend Bianca thought she could charm or bully into feeding her information." "How bad does this get?" I asked quietly. Aaron took his time answering. "Bad enough that I need you to understand something before it happens." I looked up. His gaze met mine directly. "You don't owe your mother access to you just because she gave birth to you." The words landed like a punch to the chest. I stared at him. He went on, voice even, controlled, mercilessly clear. "You do not owe your sister forgiveness because she shares your blood. And you do not owe either of them one more chance to hurt you, just so you can feel like a good person." My throat closed. It was like he had reached into the most secret, humiliating place inside me, the part that still wanted to be kind, still wanted to be fair, still wanted to be the daughter and sister who didn't make things harder, and dragged it out into the light where I had to look at it. "They're still my family," I whispered. "Yes," he said, "and they still used you." No softness, no loophole, no place to hide. I looked away because there was too much truth in his face. What if Mama calls? I asked. What if she says she needs me, that Bianca's falling apart, that this is destroying her? Aaron's answer came cold and immediate. Then Bianca can be destroyed without your help. The sheer brutality of it made me let out another weak laugh. You really don't believe in half measures. Not with women who sell their sisters. That shut me up. The room went quiet for a moment. Then I looked down at my stomach, flat under my thick sweater, and said the thing that had been sitting under everything else like a shard of glass. What do you want from me, Aaron? He didn't answer right away, which scared me more than if he had. He pushed off the dresser and came closer, stopping a few feet away this time, close enough that I could feel his presence, far enough that I did not feel cornered. Good. He was learning me too. What do you think I want? He asked. I let out a breath. Control. His mouth shifted, not quite a smile. Not amusement either. Partly. The honesty of that should have terrified me. Instead, it made me ask, what else? His gaze dropped once to my stomach, then lifted back to my face. I want the truth, he said. I want your medical care under my protection. I want you safe enough to sleep through the night. I want no one touching you without your permission, no one reaching you through family guilt, no one near this pregnancy unless you and I both allow it. He paused. And I want you to stop looking at me like I'm one bad moment away from becoming her. The last words hit harder than the rest, because I had been doing that, watching for the shift, waiting for kindness to become leverage, protection to become a cage. I looked at him carefully. Can you promise that? His eyes held mine. No, the answer knocked the air out of me. Then he kept going. I can promise I'll tell you when I'm asking for obedience instead of trust. I can promise I won't lie to you about the difference. And I can promise that if I ever use this baby to control you, you should leave me. Silence. Huge. Breathing. Impossible silence. Because no one had ever given me that before either. The right to walk away stated plainly before I had to beg for it. I set the glass aside with fingers that no longer felt steady. You make it very hard to know what to do with you, I said. Aaron stepped one pace closer. That makes two of us. My pulse stumbled. We were too close now, not touching, still too close. His gaze dropped to my mouth for one treacherous second before rising again. I felt it everywhere, in my throat, in my skin, in the air between us, tightening like something alive. This was a terrible time to notice how beautiful he was. Cruel, really. I looked away first. That feels unfair, I muttered. What does? That you get to say things like that when I'm emotionally compromised. A quiet exhale left him, almost a laugh. You're impossible. I learned from the best. His hand lifted like he meant to touch my face again. Stopped, hovered for half a second, then dropped. The restraint of it burned more than contact would have. A knock at the door broke whatever that moment had become. Aaron stepped back immediately, face settling into that cool unreadability he wore like armor. Come in. Elena appeared with a tray this time. Real food, warm and simple and fragrant enough to make my stomach twist in a way that was more hunger than nausea. Soup, rice, grilled chicken, sliced pears. She looked from my face to Aaron's and politely noticed absolutely nothing. Try this while it's hot, she said gently to me, and I added ginger to the tea. Thank you. She gave me a small nod and withdrew. The door shut. Aaron picked up the tray and carried it over to the sitting area by the fireplace, setting it on the low table. Then he looked back at me. Eat. I stared at him. Do you know any other verbs? Yes. He waited. I sighed and rose from the bed, moving to the chair opposite the couch. He stayed standing. You're not leaving, are you? No. Why? His answer came without a pause. Because you asked what I want. I looked up. Aaron met my eyes and said, very quietly, I want you to get used to the idea that you're not doing this alone. Something in me gave way. Not in the dramatic, shattering way it had earlier. In a smaller, deeper way. Like a locked room inside me had just opened and found itself flooded with light. I looked down before he could see too much of that on my face. Then I picked up the spoon with a hand that trembled only a little and took the first bite. Aaron stayed. Of course he did. And for the first time in a very long time, being watched while I tried to gather myself back together did not feel like exposure. It felt like being kept. Chapter 12. My mother called me 12 times before breakfast. Not texted. Not one careful voicemail to test the temperature of my anger. Called. 12 times in a row, like if she rang hard enough, long enough, I would become the version of me she needed again. The one who answered because guilt had always gotten there first. The one who listened. The one who softened. I stared at the screen from the breakfast room in Aaron's house while Elena set down a plate of scrambled eggs and toast I wasn't sure I could eat. Mom calling again. 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 By the 6th ring, the sound had started to feel like something crawling under my skin. By the 12th, I wanted to throw the phone through the tall glass windows and watch it disappear into the gardens. Elena glanced at the screen once, then at me. You don't have to answer. The kindness in her voice almost made me cry again. I hated that pregnancy seemed determined to turn every ordinary tenderness into a potential emotional event. I know, I said. The phone stopped. For 3 full seconds, the room went beautifully, blessedly quiet. Then it buzzed with a voicemail notification. Of course. I let out a hard breath and pushed the plate an inch away from me. A chair scraped softly at the other end of the long table. Aaron, he had come in sometime during the 8th call without interrupting. Black shirt open at the throat, dark hair still slightly damp from a shower, looking like the kind of man who could ruin governments before lunch and still remember whether I had eaten enough protein with breakfast. He sat across from me with a cup of coffee and one glance at my face. Still calling? I held up the phone. He nodded once. Don't answer. That should have irritated me. A little part of it did. A larger part wanted the order because it spared me from having to choose. I wasn't planning to. Good. Elena set his coffee down and vanished with her usual perfect timing. I looked at my phone again. The voicemail icon glowed, there, small and ugly and impossible to ignore. She'll just keep going, I said. Yes. You sound very calm about that. Aaron took a sip of coffee. Your mother isn't the problem. Something cold moved through me. You think Bianca's with her? I think Bianca doesn't need to be physically present to put words in her mouth. That was true. Painfully, spectacularly true. Bianca had always known exactly how to weaponize Mama's fear, dress it up as duty, shake it until guilt fell out. I looked down at my untouched eggs. What if something's wrong? Aaron was quiet for a beat. Then do you mean wrong with your mother, or wrong enough that it would justify what they've done? I looked up sharply. He met my eyes without flinching. There it was again, that brutal way he reached right past the safer question and put his hand around the real one. I don't know, I admitted. Yes, you do. The words landed softly. That somehow made them hit harder. My phone buzzed again, not a call this time. A text. I opened it before I could stop myself. Please answer me. Bianca is beside herself. We need to talk before this gets worse. I stared at the message until the letters blurred. Bianca is beside herself. Not how are you? Not are you safe? Not I'm sorry. We need to talk before this gets worse. As if this, their lies, their theft, their hands in my room, their mouths on my pregnancy, was some natural disaster that had simply happened to all of us. Aaron watched me read it. Let me guess. This is somehow about Bianca's pain. I let out a weak laugh. Are you psychic? No, just familiar with selfish people. The bitterness in me twisted. Because he was right, because I knew he was right before I even opened the text, because some part of me had still hoped, stupidly, pathetically, that Mama would say my name first. Instead, she had done exactly what she had always done. Centered the louder daughter. I set the phone down face up on the table like evidence. Aaron read it, then looked at me. There it is. I rubbed a hand over my mouth. I know. She wants access. She wants to fix it. No. His voice went colder. She wants you close enough to manipulate. The truth of that slid under my ribs like a blade. I hated how cleanly he saw it. I hated even more that I was starting to need him to. My phone buzzed again. Another text. Mom, she didn't mean what she said yesterday. She's upset. Please don't do this to your sister. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny. Because there was something so grotesquely predictable about it that the alternative was screaming. Wow, I said softly. That was fast. Aaron's jaw tightened once. And there it is. Please don't do this to your sister. Not what Bianca did to me, what I was doing by refusing to let her continue. I pushed back from the table, too hard. The chair legs scraped sharp against the floor. I need air. Aaron stood immediately. I hated that he moved every time I did now, some dangerous part of my body already expecting him to be there. I'll come with you. No. He paused. I forced myself to breathe slower. I just mean, I need 1 minute where no one is telling me what this means. His expression changed, not offended, not cold, thinking. Then he nodded once. Garden, east side. Security stays back. That should not have felt like trust. It did. I took my phone and stepped out through the sunroom doors into the crisp morning air. The gardens behind Aaron's house were too beautiful for the kind of war that kept breaking out around me. Stone paths, winter roses holding on stubbornly in trimmed beds, tall hedges, a fountain with water moving so quietly it sounded like a secret. I walked until I couldn't hear the house as much anymore. Then I stopped and looked at the phone. 3 texts, 12 missed calls, 1 voicemail. I pressed play before I could change my mind. Mama's voice filled my ear immediately, strained and shaking. Naomi, honey, please call me back. I know you're upset, but this has gotten so out of hand. Bianca is not doing well. She hasn't slept and she keeps saying terrible things, and I need you to be reasonable. Please, please don't let this man turn you against your family. I shut the voicemail off so hard my finger hurt. Reasonable. The word sat in my chest like poison. Reasonable meant quiet. Reasonable meant absorb it. Reasonable meant let Bianca break me in private so Mama could still tell herself she had 2 daughters instead of 1 wounded child and 1 storm she never learned how to stop. I looked down at my stomach and pressed my hand there instinctively. Still flat, still hidden, still mine. Reasonable, I whispered. Then I laughed once, low and ugly. The sound startled a bird out of the hedge. My phone buzzed again. This time the text was not from Mama. It was from Bianca. I stared at the name for a full second before opening it. I know you're reading these. Don't be stupid enough to think he's protecting you for free. The air in my lungs turned to ice. Another message came immediately after. Men like Aaron don't save girls like you. They cage them. And then come home before he decides what your baby costs. My hand tightened around the phone so hard it almost shook. There it was, her real play. Not apology, not reconciliation, fear. She couldn't get to me through guilt fast enough, so now she was trying to poison the one thing that had steadied me since I walked out of that house. The dangerous, fragile belief that Aaron's protection was not just another prettier form of ownership. And the cruelest part, it worked. Not fully, but enough. Because I had wondered, in the dark, in quiet moments, in the spaces between his care and his control. He was honest, but he was still Aaron DeLuca. Still a man with power thick in his bloodstream. Still a man who had said what's mine in a voice that had made my whole body go still. My chest tightened. I hated that she knew exactly where to push. You look like you want to set your phone on fire. I turned too fast. Aaron stood several feet away on the stone path, hands in his pockets, giving me distance exactly like he said he would. I let out a breath. You move quietly? When I want to. My eyes dropped to the phone. He noticed. Of course. Bianca? Show me. I hesitated. His gaze sharpened just slightly. Naomi? I know what you're going to say. What am I going to say? That she's manipulating me. He held my gaze. She is. I looked away, because I was suddenly furious and embarrassed and not entirely sure at whom. At least she understands what I'd be afraid of, I muttered. The second the words were out, the air changed. Aaron didn't move, didn't speak. But everything in him seemed to go very still in that dangerous way I knew too well by now. I should have stopped there. I didn't. Maybe she's wrong, I said, staring at the fountain instead of him. Maybe she's not, but she knows exactly what to say because she knows me, and she knows that eventually this starts looking like another cage with better locks. Silence. Huge, breathing, terrible silence. When Aaron finally spoke, his voice was low enough to raise gooseflesh along my arms. Look at me. I did, because not looking would have been worse. He stood a few feet away in the pale morning light, dark and composed and beautiful in that severe way that always felt a little unfair. But there was something in his face now I hadn't seen before. Not anger, something more stripped than that. You think I don't know what I look like from the outside? He asked. I swallowed. Aaron. No. His tone stayed quiet, but it cut straight through me. If that's what you're afraid of, say it properly. My pulse kicked. He was doing it again, dragging the real wound into daylight where I couldn't hide behind softer words. I hated him for it. I needed him for it. I drew in a breath. I'm afraid that one day I'll wake up and realize I traded Bianca's control for yours. The truth hung between us, raw and shivering. Aaron absorbed it without blinking. Then he took one step closer. Only one. If you ever feel trapped here, he said, you tell me once, one time. And if I don't open the door myself, you leave anyway. I stared at him. He kept going. You want contact with your mother? Fine. You set the terms. You want none? Fine. You set that too. You want your own doctor instead of mine, your own room in another house, your own security not tied to my name. I'll arrange it. His jaw tightened. But do not insult me by pretending I need to trick a frightened woman into staying where she's already safe. The words hit so hard I felt them in my ribs, because he was angry now, not at my fear. At the idea that safety had to look like a trap because that was all I'd ever been taught to expect. My throat tightened. That's not what I meant. Yes, it is, he said, and you had every reason to mean it. That stole my next breath completely. He stepped closer again. Now he was near enough that the air changed around him, near enough that I could smell cedar and clean soap and the darker scent that was just him, near enough that if I leaned forward even slightly, I would collide with his chest. But hear me carefully, he said, voice lower now. I will keep you safe. I will be controlling about your security, your medical care, and anyone who comes near you while this situation is unstable. I won't apologize for that. What I will not do is own your choices and call it love. The word landed hard between us. Love. Not because that was what this was. It wasn't. It couldn't be. Not yet. But because he knew exactly which lie Bianca was trying to build inside my head. That possessive protection was romantic if you dressed it well enough. Aaron's hand lifted like he meant to touch me. Stopped. Waited. Choice. Again, my chest ached. Yes, I whispered. His fingers slid lightly along my jaw, warm and devastatingly careful until they rested for 1 second at the side of my neck where my pulse was racing. You decide what contact your mother gets, he said quietly. Not guilt. Not Bianca. You. I closed my eyes, because that simple sentence felt harder than any dramatic declaration could have. Me. I decided. Not Mama's tears, not Bianca's rage, not even Aaron's strategy. Me. When I opened my eyes again, he was still watching me like the answer mattered. It has to be in writing, I said. His hand dropped. A flicker of approval moved through his face. Good. No calls, I went on, the words growing steadier as I spoke them. No showing up here, no passing messages through anyone else. If she wants to say something to me, it goes through text. And if Bianca touches her phone again, I'm done. Aaron nodded once. Done permanently? The question should have shocked me. It didn't. Maybe because permanent had already happened the moment Bianca leaked the pregnancy. Maybe because blood had started meaning less to me than peace. I looked down at my stomach, then back at him. Yes, I said softly. Permanently. Aaron held my gaze for one long beat. Then, I'll have your number routed. Anything from Bianca gets blocked. Anything from your mother gets screened first until you're ready. I frowned. That sounds like a lot. It is. Something almost like a smile touched my mouth. You say that like you're ordering lunch. I've done harder things before breakfast. That startled a real laugh out of me. Brief. Helpless. Real. Aaron's eyes warmed, not softly, never softly, but enough to make my skin feel too tight. Then his phone buzzed. He took it out, glanced at the screen, and his expression cooled again. What now? I asked. He looked at me first, then at the phone, then back at me. Your sister just tried to contact a reporter again. The laughter vanished from my body so fast it hurt. What? She wants another version out there before my attorney files the restraining orders publicly. My stomach turned. Can she do that? She can try? And you? His gaze sharpened. I end it. The certainty in his voice should have frightened me. Instead, it made me feel something dangerous and warm and entirely too close to relief. I hated that. I loved it, both at once. Aaron slipped the phone back into his pocket. Come inside. We're done letting her dictate the pace. He offered his hand. Not command, not pressure, just a hand, palm open between us in the winter light. I looked at it, then at him. Then I placed my hand in his. His fingers closed around mine, warm and certain. And as he led me back toward the house, one terrible, undeniable thought moved through me with the force of a confession I was not ready to say out loud. Bianca had wanted me afraid of Aaron because fear had always been the easiest way to get me back under control. But the real problem, was that every time Aaron gave me a choice and stayed anyway, I trusted him more. Chapter 13. The truth hit the internet at 11:42 a.m. Not mine. Bianca's version. I felt it before I saw it. The house shifted. Not physically, nothing so obvious, but the air inside Aaron's world tightened, sharpened, like every person within these walls had just received the same silent command at the same time. Phones started moving. Voices dropped lower. Footsteps got faster. War. I was standing in the sitting room with a cup of tea I hadn't touched when Aaron walked in without knocking. His eyes went straight to me. Sit. I didn't. What happened? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he held out his phone. I took it, and the world tilted. Breaking. Fiancé of Aaron DeLuca confirms pregnancy after family betrayal. Insider claims sister attempted to seduce the Don. My throat closed. There was a photo. Bianca. Perfect. Polished. Standing outside a boutique medical building I had never been to, one hand resting lightly falsely against her stomach. And the statement. God. The statement. I've tried to handle this privately, but the truth deserves dignity. I am pregnant, and recent attempts by a close family member to interfere in my relationship have been deeply painful. I ask for privacy while Aaron and I focus on our future as a family. My vision blurred. She flipped it, I whispered. Aaron's voice was cold. Yes. She made it sound like I went after you. She made it sound like you're unstable and jealous. The words landed clean, precise, devastating. I lowered the phone slowly. My hands were shaking. She's going to ruin me. Aaron stepped closer. No. You don't know that. I do. I let out a sharp, breathless laugh. You always know, don't you? Yes. The certainty in his voice scraped against every frayed nerve in my body. I turned away from him, pacing 2 steps before stopping because my body felt too tight, too full of adrenaline and fear, and something uglier than both. She went public, I said. That means she's not backing down. That means she's ready to drag this as far as it goes. Yes. And what does that look like, Aaron? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like she just set the narrative, and now I'm the other woman in my own story. He moved. Not fast, not aggressive, just enough to step into my space again, forcing me to look at him whether I wanted to or not. That narrative lasts exactly as long as I allow it to. I stared at him. You can't control the entire internet. No, he said. Just the parts that matter. That answer should have terrified me. Instead, it made my pulse spike for a completely different reason. Because he wasn't bluffing, because I was starting to understand exactly how far his reach went, and because that meant the next move wouldn't be small. What are you going to do? I asked. He held my gaze. That depends on you. The words hit harder than anything else. Me? Yes. My chest tightened. I don't have anything to do with this anymore. She already? No. His voice cut through mine. You have everything to do with this. I shook my head. She got there first. She said it publicly. People are going to believe her. For now, for long enough. Aaron's jaw flexed once. Then he said very quietly, Do you want the truth out? The question stopped everything. Not because I didn't understand it, because I did. Completely. Fully. Terrifyingly. If the truth came out, everyone would know. Not Bianca, me, my pregnancy. My involvement, the night, the lie, the betrayal, my life would not stay small after that. There would be no going back to quiet, no hiding, no pretending this hadn't happened. Bianca would lose, but I would be exposed. And suddenly, I understood why she had moved first, because she knew exactly how much I had to lose. Aaron watched the realization move through me. Answer carefully, he said, because once it's out, it doesn't go back in. My heart pounded. I don't know. The words came out softer than I intended. Honest. Too honest. His gaze didn't waver. Then let me ask you a better question. I swallowed. What? Do you want to spend the next 9 months watching her pretend your child is hers? The air left my lungs. I hadn't let myself think that far ahead. Hadn't let myself picture doctor appointments, announcements, photos, a baby shower that wasn't mine, her hands on a life she had tried to steal before it even existed. My stomach twisted violently. No, the answer tore out of me. Aaron nodded once. Then we end it. My pulse spiked. How? His eyes darkened slightly. Properly. There was something in that word. Something final, something that told me this wasn't going to be a quiet correction buried under legal language and polite statements. This was going to be a shift, a public one. I took a step back. What does that mean? It means we tell the truth. My chest tightened. Just like that? No. His voice stayed calm. Not just like that. We do it in a way that removes her ability to twist it again. I stared at him. And what does that cost me? The question hung between us. Heavy. Real. Aaron didn't answer right away. Then, privacy, he said. The word landed exactly where I expected it to. Anything else? He held my gaze. Control of how strangers see you. I let out a breath that felt like it scraped my ribs on the way out. Anything else? A beat. Then quieter. No, I laughed once. Not because it was funny. Because it was devastatingly simple. Just privacy and control, I said. That's all. That's everything to someone who's never had it, he said. The truth of that hit like a blow. I turned away again, because I needed a second to breathe, to think, to decide something that would change the shape of my life in ways I could not undo. My phone buzzed. I looked down. Bianca. Again. I opened it before I could stop myself. Bianca, you see it now, don't you? This is what happens when you try to take something that isn't yours. My hand tightened. Another message came immediately. Stay quiet, and I'll make sure you don't get dragged through this. Keep pushing, and I will destroy you. I stared at the words. Then I laughed, really laughed, because there it was, the choice, clearer than anything Aaron could have said. Stay quiet, stay small, stay safe, or fight. I lifted my head. Aaron was already watching me. Waiting, not pushing, not deciding for me, just waiting. My chest rose and fell once, twice, then... She doesn't get to have this, I said. The words felt different coming out of me, stronger, sharper, mine. Aaron's expression didn't change, but something in the room did. Say it properly, he said. I stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat of him, close enough that this didn't feel like something happening around me anymore. I want the truth out, I said. All of it. Silence. Then, good. The word landed like a trigger being pulled. My pulse jumped. What happens now? Aaron reached into his pocket tab, pulled out his phone, and typed something quickly. Now, he said, we take control back. That should have been enough. It wasn't. Tell me, I said. His eyes lifted to mine, and for the first time since this started, I saw something that wasn't just control. Not just strategy. Something personal. You go on record, he said. My stomach dropped. What? With me? The room tilted. Aaron, you don't speak alone, he continued. You don't get cornered. You don't get misquoted down. We do it together. One statement, one appearance, one version of the truth that no one gets to rewrite. My heart pounded. That was bigger than I expected. That was terrifying. And after that, he held my gaze. After that, anyone who tries to twist it again answers to me. The words sent a shiver down my spine. Not fear. Something darker, safer, more dangerous. I swallowed hard. This is insane. Yes. You're asking me to step into your world publicly. Yes. And you think that ends well? A pause, then, I think it ends better than letting her own you. The truth of that hit like a blow, because that was what this really was. Ownership, narrative, control. I looked down at my stomach again, then back at him. Okay. The word felt like stepping off a ledge. Aaron didn't react immediately. He studied me for one long second, making sure, then, okay. Something in his voice shifted. Not relief, not satisfaction, alignment, like two pieces finally locking into place. What do you need from me, I asked. Honesty, he said, and no hesitation once we start. I nodded slowly. I can do that. I know. The confidence in his voice made something in my chest tighten. Because he believed it, because he believed in me in a way I wasn't used to. And because I suddenly understood something I hadn't let myself name yet, this wasn't just about stopping Bianca anymore. This was about who I was willing to become when I stopped letting her define me. Aaron's phone buzzed again. He glanced at it, then looked back at me. It's ready. My pulse spiked. Already? I told you, he said quietly. I don't let things sit. Of course he didn't. I let out a breath, then another. Okay, I said again, stronger this time. Aaron stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the gravity of him pulling everything else into focus. His hand lifted, paused, then rested lightly at my waist, not trapping, not forcing, just there, grounding. We do this once, he said. Once, I agreed. His gaze dropped briefly to my mouth, then back to my eyes. Stay with me, he said. I am. And for the first time since this started, I meant it without hesitation. Chapter 14. The cameras were already waiting when we pulled up. Of course they were. They clustered behind metal barricades like vultures in expensive coats, lenses lifted, voices low but buzzing with that specific kind of hunger that comes from knowing something ugly and important is about to happen in public. The car slowed. My stomach flipped. "Breathe," Aaron said beside me. I wasn't. I dragged in air. It didn't help. "They're going to tear me apart," I whispered. "No." The word was quiet, certain. "They don't get to." I turned to him. "You don't control what they say." "No," he said, "but I control what matters." There it was again, that impossible certainty, that refusal to let the world exist outside his influence. It should have made me feel smaller. Instead it steadied me, just enough. The car stopped. A guard opened the door. The noise hit instantly. Shouts, questions, flashes of light. "Mr. DeLuca, is it true? Who is she? Are you confirming the pregnancy? Is this about your fiancé?" My pulse roared in my ears. Aaron got out first. Then he turned back and held out his hand. Not rushed, not dramatic. Just there, waiting. Choice. Again, I looked at him, at the chaos waiting outside that door. Then I placed my hand in his fingers closed around mine, warm, steady, unyielding. "Stay with me," he said quietly. "I am." He helped me out. The world exploded. Cameras flashed so fast it felt like lightning, cracking over and over again. Voices surged. My name, my actual name, started to appear in the noise, pulled from somewhere, someone already connecting pieces faster than I thought possible. "Naomi. Naomi, is that you? Is she the sister? Mr. DeLuca, confirm." Aaron didn't stop, didn't look at them, didn't slow. He walked straight through it, like the noise didn't exist, like the only thing that mattered was the path ahead, and the hand he kept wrapped around mine. I kept up, because I had to, because falling behind now meant being swallowed. Inside. The doors shut. The noise dropped instantly. Silence. Heavy. Pressurized. I sucked in a breath. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else. Aaron didn't let go. Not yet. He guided me down a hallway, through a set of double doors, and into a private room that overlooked the press area from above. The glass was tinted. They couldn't see us. We could see everything. I moved to the window before I could stop myself. There they were, waiting, restless, hungry, ready to tear apart whatever version of truth we handed them. "This is insane," I said again. "Yes." Aaron finally let go of my hand. The absence of his touch hit harder than I expected. "You can still walk away," he said. I turned. "What?" "You don't go out there," he said calmly. "I issue a statement. We handle it without you being seen." The option hit like a shock. Because it was real. Because it was exactly the kind of escape Bianca had offered, dressed differently, but rooted in the same idea. Stay hidden, stay protected, stay small. My chest tightened. "If I don't go out there," I said slowly, "she still owns the story." "Yes." "And people will still think it's her." "Yes." "And I stay." "What?" I let out a breath, a ghost in my own life. Aaron didn't answer. He didn't need to. I looked back at the glass, at the crowd, at the world waiting to decide who I was based on the next 5 minutes. Then I looked down at my stomach. At the life I was carrying. At the thing Bianca had tried to steal before it even had a heartbeat. No, I lifted my head. "I'm going out there." Aaron studied me. 1 long second. 2. Then, "Okay." Something in his voice shifted again. Not approval, not relief. Something deeper. Final. "What do I say?" I asked. "The truth." "That's not helpful." A faint shadow of something almost like amusement touched his mouth. "It is," I exhaled sharply. "You're impossible." Yes, there it was again. And somehow it helped. A woman stepped into the room then, Aaron's attorney. She handed him a folder. "Statement is ready," she said. "Press is getting more aggressive. We should move." Aaron nodded, then looked at me. "You don't read from it," he said. "Good," I muttered, because I'd forget it anyway. "You speak once," he continued. "Clear, direct, no apologizing." "I don't apologize," I said automatically. His brow lifted slightly. I almost laughed. "Okay," I admitted. "I do." "Not today." The words landed heavier than they should have. Not today. Not for Bianca. Not for Mama. Not for anyone who had taught me that existing was something I needed to soften. I nodded. "Not today." Aaron stepped closer. Too close. The air shifted. "You stay on my left," he said. "You don't answer questions unless I tell you to. You don't let them pull you apart from me." "I won't." His gaze held mine. Then, good. A beat passed, then another. Neither of us moved. Something tightened between us. Not the chaos outside, not the strategy, not the war, Something else, something that had been building since the first moment he looked at me like I mattered more than the situation. My pulse jumped. Aaron's hand lifted, stopped, hovered. Then he cupped the side of my face. Just once. Just long enough for his thumb to brush lightly under my eye like he was checking for tears that weren't there anymore. "You're not alone out there," he said quietly. My throat tightened. "I know, and I did. That was the dangerous part." He dropped his hand. The moment broke. "Let's go," he said. The doors opened. The noise rushed back. This time it didn't hit me the same way. It was still loud, still chaotic, still overwhelming. But it wasn't swallowing me, because I wasn't walking into it alone. Aaron stepped forward. I stayed at his side. The crowd surged. "Mr. DeLuca, is this your fiancé?" "Who is the real mother?" He raised one hand. The noise cut, not completely, but enough. That was what it looked like. Not loud, not forced, just expected. "My name is Aaron DeLuca," he said, voice carrying clean and controlled. "And there has been a deliberate attempt to misrepresent a private matter involving my family." The word family hit differently now. Not Bianca, not Mama, me. My pulse spiked. "The woman standing beside me," he continued, "is Naomi Harper." Every camera turned, every lens locked, every eye shifted to me. This was it, the moment, the point where everything changed. Aaron's hand found mine again, squeezed once. "Go," I stepped forward. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. But my voice didn't shake. "I am pregnant," I said. The words landed like a bomb. Noise exploded. Questions, shouts, chaos. Aaron didn't let go. I kept going. "The child I'm carrying is Aaron's," I said, "and any claims made suggesting otherwise are false." Another wave of noise. But I didn't stop. Not this time. "My sister does not have my permission to speak on my pregnancy," I continued, louder now. Stronger. She never did. Gasps, shouts, names being called. I felt it, the shift, the moment the story started to fracture. I took one more breath and said the thing that mattered most. This is not her story to tell. Silence. Not complete, but enough for it to land, enough for it to matter. Aaron stepped forward again. "That will be all," he said. And just like that, it was done. He turned, pulled me with him. We walked away. The noise followed. Of course it did. But it didn't touch me the same way anymore, because I had said it, out loud, in front of all of them, and the second the doors closed behind us again, I felt it. The shift. Inside me, inside this, inside everything. I turned to Aaron, my chest still rising and falling too fast. "That was effective," he said. I let out a breath that almost felt like a laugh. Terrifying. "Yes." I shook my head, a small disbelieving smile pulling at my mouth. "You really just dropped me into that." "You walked in. Fair. Annoying. True." I looked at him, really looked, and for the first time since this started, the fear wasn't the loudest thing in my chest. Something else was, something warmer, sharper, more dangerous. "You didn't let go," I said quietly. His gaze dropped to our hands, still linked, then back to my face. "No." The word felt heavier now, not just about the press, not just about the moment, about everything. My pulse jumped. "This changes things," I said. "Yes. In ways we can't take back. Yes." Silence stretched, charged, alive. Then, "Good," I said. Shut. Aaron's expression shifted. Not much, just enough. Then his hand tightened around mine. And for the first time, it didn't feel like I was being protected. It felt like I had stepped into something I chose. Chapter 15. Bianca tried to take my baby 3 days after I told the world it was mine. Not legally, not cleverly, not with one of her polished little half-lies dressed up as concern. She came for me the old way, with panic, with entitlement, with a key she should never have still had, and with the absolute conviction that if she could just get me alone, she could still bend me back into the shape she wanted. I was in Aaron's dressing room when it happened, standing barefoot on the thick, dark rug, with one of his shirts half-buttoned over leggings, because none of my own clothes fit comfortably across my stomach anymore, not yet visibly, not really, but enough that every waistband felt like a threat. The house was quiet in that strange late afternoon way it had started to be around me, a quiet layered over security, staff, movement, and intention. I had just come back from another doctor's appointment. Everything looked good. Still early, still fragile, still real. I kept hearing that word from doctors, from Aaron, from myself. Fragile, like the baby, like trust, like the new shape my life had taken inside this house with its stone floors and cedar scent, and the man downstairs who had become the axis. Every dangerous thing seemed to turn around. I was brushing my hair back from my face when I heard it. The click. Small, sharp, wrong. Not the bedroom door, the inner sitting room door. Every muscle in my body locked. For 1 second I told myself it was Elena, or one of the women Aaron had assigned to me, or Aaron himself, moving quietly the way he always did, slipping in without wasted sound. Then Bianca's voice cut through the room. I knew it. I turned so fast the brush fell from my hand. She stood in the sitting room doorway in cream trousers and a pale sweater, beautiful as ever, wild-eyed now in a way beauty could not hide. Her hair was loose, her lipstick perfect, her expression completely ruined. My pulse slammed hard enough to hurt. How did you get in here? Her laugh came out thin and ugly. You think he's the only one who knows how to get through locked doors? Fear hit first, then anger, hot and immediate and so much cleaner than fear that I almost welcomed it. Bianca stepped closer, gaze dropping straight to my stomach, not showing yet. Not enough for anyone else to notice. Enough for her. You really did it, she whispered. You actually stood beside him and took it from me. The room felt too small. My skin too tight. I backed up once. Not because I was scared of her, because instinct moved before pride did, because there was a baby inside me now and every part of me had started calculating danger in ways I couldn't control. Don't come any closer, I said. She smiled, that old polished, hateful smile. Oh, now you know how to say that. I should have screamed, should have run for the hall, should have reached for the phone on the dresser. Instead, I stood there staring at the girl who had once braided my hair before school and stolen my diary at 15 and slapped me in her dressing room like she had every right. And I understood something ugly and absolute. Bianca still believed this was a fight she could win in private. She took another step. I tried to do this the easy way, she said. I gave you a role, a purpose. I was going to make sure you were taken care of. I actually laughed. It came out cold. You mean hidden. I mean protected. You mean erased. Her jaw tightened. You have no idea what I was trying to build. I know exactly what you were trying to build, I snapped. A life with my body as the foundation. That landed. Good. For 1 second, I saw real rage strip all the polish off her face. Then tears sprang into her eyes so fast it would have impressed me if I hadn't known her my whole life. Do you think this has been easy for me? She asked, voice breaking in just the right places. Do you think finding out I could never give him a child didn't break something inside me? The grief in her voice was real. That was the worst part. Bianca was not a cartoon villain. She was a wounded woman who had let pain rot into entitlement. And because she had suffered, she had decided everyone else owed her blood for it. Something in me softened for 1 fatal second. She saw it. Of course she did. She moved fast. Too fast. 1 second she was crying in the doorway. The next she was in front of me with both hands reaching. I jerked back hard enough to hit the edge of the dresser. Don't touch me. I just need you to listen. No. Her fingers caught my wrist. Instantly everything inside me went white hot. I yanked free so violently the hairbrush on the floor skidded across the rug. Bianca stared at me, stunned for 1 split second that I had fought back before she even finished the move. Then her face changed. Oh my God, she said softly. And I knew that look. She had found the wound. You're afraid of me. I bared my teeth. I'm afraid for my baby. Something vicious and broken flashed through her. Your baby, she repeated. Then laughed, not prettily, not elegantly, like something cracked open and ugly had started crawling out of her. You think saying it out loud makes it true? It is true. No, her eyes glittered. It was supposed to be mine. There it was again. The madness under the performance. The belief that wanting something hard enough rewrote ownership. She lunged for me, not with a knife, not with some dramatic weapon. With her hands. For my stomach. I twisted sideways on instinct, one arm dropping protectively across my middle as I shoved at her shoulder with the other. She stumbled, hit the side table, sent a lamp crashing to the floor. The sound shattered through the room. Good. Let the whole damn house hear. Help! I screamed. Bianca froze. For 1 shocked second, I think she genuinely hadn't expected me to do that. Not quiet, Naomi. Not careful, Naomi. Not the one who used to absorb humiliation like it was part of being loved. Then she moved, again, faster now, panic replacing strategy. "Stop it," she hissed. "Stop screaming." "No." She came at me again. I grabbed the nearest thing, one of Aaron's heavy hardcover books from the shelf behind me, and swung, not at her face, not hard enough to do real damage, hard enough to make her recoil with a shocked cry as the edge caught her arm. The bedroom door flew open. Two of Aaron's women came in first. One saw Bianca and moved without hesitation. Bianca spun toward the door just as the second woman caught her by the elbow and yanked her back from me. "Get off me!" Bianca screamed. "Get your hands off me!" I was still backed against the dresser, one hand over my stomach, breathing so hard my chest hurt. Then Aaron came in, and the room changed. It always did when he entered angry. Not louder. Worse. He took in everything in one sweep, the broken lamp, the overturned table, Bianca restrained by his security, me pressed against the dresser in his shirt with my hair half falling down and my hand clamped over the baby like I could shield it from the entire world. His face went still in a way that made the air feel carved out of ice. "Check her," he said. One of the women came straight to me. "Are you hurt?" I shook my head, then nodded, then realized I couldn't tell. "I don't know." Aaron's eyes flicked to the woman. "Doctor. Now." Then to Bianca. I had seen him cold, seen him controlled, seen him ruthless in flashes. I had never seen this. This looked like the end of mercy. Bianca was crying now, really crying, breathless and furious and terrified all at once. "She hit me." Aaron didn't even look at her arm. "You broke into my house," he said. "It's not your house she stole from me. It's my life." His gaze finally landed on her fully. And even restrained, even hysterical, even still beautiful enough that another man might have softened for a second, Bianca flinched. "I warned you," he said. No raised voice, no dramatic threat, just certainty. She shook her head, frantically. "You don't understand." "I understand exactly." He took one step closer. "You entered my home after legal service. You violated distance restrictions. You approached her physically. You reached for my child." The room went dead still around the words, "my child." Bianca heard them too. So did I. Her face twisted. "Your child? You weren't saying that when you were going to marry me." Aaron's expression didn't move. "I was never going to marry you." The words hit like a blade. Bianca went absolutely white. Even crying, even unraveling, she had still been holding on to that, some version of a future, some belief that the public humiliation could still be corrected if she got him alone, got me out of the way, got the story back under her hands. He had just killed that illusion in front of all of us. "You're lying," she whispered. "No," he said. "I'm done." The doctor rushed in then, bag in hand, eyes taking in the scene with professional speed. Aaron didn't look away from Bianca. "Check, Naomi." Full evaluation. The doctor nodded and moved to me immediately, asking calm questions in a voice meant to ground. Pain? Bleeding? Cramping? Dizziness? My answers came in pieces. "No, I don't think so. She didn't get..." I twisted. Aaron stayed where he was, watching Bianca, while I stood there shaking and trying not to fall apart. Some brutal part of me registered the scene with perfect clarity. Bianca, restrained and crying and still trying to make this about what she had lost. Aaron, black-eyed with fury and terrifyingly calm. Me, in the middle of them, holding my stomach and realizing there was no version of this where we ever went back. The doctor gently guided me to sit. "Heart rate's high, but that's expected," he said quietly. "I want you lying down as soon as possible. We may want an ultrasound again if you start cramping." I nodded. Couldn't seem to stop. Bianca made a broken sound from across the room. "Naomi?" I looked up. She was staring at me now. Not Aaron. Not security. Me. And for the first time since she entered the room, she looked less furious than lost. That almost hurt more. "You would let him do this to me?" she whispered. I stared at her, at the woman who had tried to grab my unborn baby through my body and still thought she was the victim if I finally chose not to bleed for her anymore. Something inside me settled. Cold, final, clean. "No," I said softly. Her face flickered with hope. I kept going. "You did this to yourself." The hope died. Aaron inclined his head toward the door. "Take her." Bianca thrashed instantly. "No! No, Aaron, wait. Naomi." I did not move, did not speak, did not rescue her. Not this time. The women started escorting her out. Her heels dragged, her voice rose, her composure shattered in pieces. "You can't shut me out. She's still my sister." The words echoed down the hall, then came back thinner. "You can't do this to me." Then thinner still. "Naomi." The silence after the door shut was so complete it rang. My whole body started shaking harder. Not from fear now, from aftermath. The doctor said something about lying down, about monitoring, about stress. I barely heard him. Because Aaron had crossed the room and stopped right in front of me. Not touching. Not yet. His eyes moved over my face, my hands, my body, checking for damage with a concentration so fierce it almost hurt to be looked at that way. Did she touch your stomach? No, my voice cracked. I moved. His jaw flexed once. That was all. Then his hand came up and hovered for 1 second in front of my face. Not to touch. Not without permission. I nodded. Yes. His palm settled against my cheek. Warm. Steady. Devastatingly careful. You did well, he said quietly. The words shattered the last of my control. A sob tore out of me. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just wrecked. Aaron pulled me into him before I could apologize for it. One arm around my back. One hand braced at the nape of my neck. I folded against him, instantly, shaking hard enough that I could feel it in my teeth. She came for the baby, I whispered. His hold tightened. I know. She would have. She didn't. The steel in his voice cut straight through the panic spiral trying to open up under my ribs. She didn't, he repeated, and she never will again. I believed him. That was the terrifying part. Not because he said it like a promise, because he said it like fact. Behind us, I heard the doctor and security quietly clearing the room, righting furniture, murmuring into phones. None of it touched me. There was only Aaron's body around mine, his heartbeat steady against my ear, and the words he said next, low enough that maybe no one else heard them at all. She's finished. I lifted my face from his chest just enough to look at him. His eyes met mine. No softness, no pretty lie, no attempt to make this gentler than it was. Just truth. And in that truth, something in me finally stopped straining backward toward the life I used to have. Bianca was not coming back from this. Mama might never forgive me for letting the line hold. The story would keep spreading. The world would keep talking. But the old shape of my life was gone. And standing there in Aaron's arms with my hand pressed between us over the baby that was still mine, I understood something else too. This wasn't the epilogue. It was the moment the real beginning finally arrived. Epilogue. The first time Aaron felt our son kick, he went completely still. Not the cold, dangerous stillness he wore like a weapon. Something else. Something I had never seen on him before and might never see on another human being again. Wonder. Pure, stunned, merciless wonder. It happened in the middle of a quiet night 6 months after Bianca broke into his house and tried to claw her way back into my life with both hands. By then, nothing about my life looked the way it had before. The legal fallout had come down hard and clean. Aaron had meant it when he said Bianca was finished. He did not ruin her with public screaming or crude revenge. He ruined her the way men like him ruined people when they were no longer interested in pretending mercy was on the table. Systematically. Documents surfaced, timelines hardened, lawyers moved, private recordings, messages, appointment requests, and financial records painted a picture so ugly, Bianca couldn't smooth it over with a single tearful interview or trembling statement. The attempted fraud tied to the fake pregnancy story became public first. Then the unauthorized access to my room, the harassment, the break-in, the violation of the injunction, the attempt to interfere with my medical care. The day she came for me in Aaron's house became the final nail because there had been witnesses that time. Staff. Security, a doctor, me, especially me. I gave one formal statement. 1. I did not cry in it. I did not soften it. I did not protect her. I simply told the truth. And the truth, when I finally stopped dressing it up to keep everyone comfortable, was ugly enough on its own. Bianca lost the engagement she had never truly had. The social circle that only loved her while she looked untouchable, and every carefully polished illusion she had spent her life mistaking for power. Mama tried to save her at first. Of course she did. She called, texted, left voicemails so full of shaking grief and furious pleading that I started to recognize the rhythm of her desperation before I even pressed play. Your sisters. She's not well. This has gone too far. How can you let this happen? As if I were the storm. As if I had dragged Bianca into deceit and humiliation by the hair. As if letting this happen wasn't exactly what Mama had done for years. Every time Bianca crossed a line and I was told to be understanding, because keeping peace mattered more than keeping me safe. The first real consequence Mama faced did not come from Aaron. It came from me. I stopped answering, not dramatically, not for one day to make a point. I just stopped. At first I thought it would break me, that I would wake up one morning, choking on guilt, and run back to the familiar role of quieter daughter, softer daughter, the one who knew how to absorb damage and call it love. It never happened. What happened instead was stranger. Every day I did not answer her calls. I breathed a little easier. Every week I went without hearing Bianca's name in my ear like a command. My body unclenched another inch, and eventually Mama, stripped of access to me and unable to use me to prop Bianca back up, was forced to sit alone with what she had done. For the first time in her life, no one was helping her call it something else. She sold the house 3 months after the scandal broke fully. Not because the bank had finally dragged it out from under her, though that would have happened eventually, because there was no point keeping it anymore. The neighborhood that had once mattered so much no longer welcomed her. The appearances she had starved us to maintain were gone. And without Bianca's false future or my usefulness to keep the whole structure standing, it was just a beautiful shell full of bad history and unpaid truths. She moved into a smaller townhouse across the water, alone. The day I heard about it, I expected triumph, maybe pity. What I felt instead was something quieter, a clean sadness, not because I wanted her back, because I understood finally that consequences could be tragic without being undeserved. And Bianca left the city in winter, not escorted in disgrace by television cameras, not dragged off in handcuffs, just gone. Her lawyer negotiated around the ugliest public pieces. Aaron allowed that much, but no more. She avoided formal charges that would have destroyed her permanently in one direction, only to be destroyed socially and financially in every other. She lost access to the trusts Mama had believed would cushion her. She lost any claim to Aaron's name. She lost the right to speak publicly about me, the baby, or any version of the pregnancy without triggering consequences so immediate, even Bianca finally learned not to test them. The last thing I ever received from her came in a letter forwarded through attorneys. Not because I asked for it, because she did. 3 pages. No apology. Just page after page of twisted grief, jealousy, and rage dressed up as explanation. She wrote that I had taken the life she was supposed to have, that Aaron looked at me the way he should have looked at her, that if I had loved her, I would have understood what it cost her to be told she could never carry a child. I read it once. Then I folded it carefully and handed it to Aaron. He looked at my face for 1 second and asked, "Burn it?" I nodded. He did, and I watched the paper curl black in the fireplace until the last of her version of things turned to ash. After that, I was done carrying her in my body where she did not belong. I wish I could say healing was dramatic, that there was one shining moment where I woke up free and fearless and transformed into a woman no one could ever touch again. The truth was messier. Healing looked like nausea and prenatal vitamins and learning to sleep without one hand over my stomach every time the house creaked. It looked like flinching less every time someone reached for me unexpectedly. It looked like sitting in Aaron's kitchen at 6 in the morning while Elena slid toast and ginger tea in front of me without making a fuss, and Aaron read reports at the other end of the island, dark and severe, and somehow more grounding than the walls around me. It looked like doctor appointments where he never missed a detail and never once pretended the baby was an abstraction. It looked like him asking before he touched me when I was already hurting. Like him not asking when I was throwing up and needed my hair held back, because by then my dignity had surrendered to necessity, and his hands had become something my body knew how to trust. We did not fall into love all at once. That would have been too simple, too easy, too merciful for 2 people like us. What happened instead was slower and much more dangerous. He became the first person I wanted beside me when something frightened me. I became the first person whose opinion could alter his mood without him pretending otherwise. He still controlled too much. I still bristled too fast. We fought exactly the way you'd expect 2 wounded, stubborn people with too much pride and one shared center of gravity would fight. Like fire meeting iron. The worst argument we had before the baby came happened in my 7th month, when Aaron tried to assign a second car to follow me during a prenatal yoga class I hadn't even wanted to take in the first place. "You are not sending armed men to breathing exercises," I snapped in the middle of the kitchen while Elena pretended not to hear from the next room. "They won't be in the room. That is not the point. It's exactly the point. No, the point is that I am pregnant, not under siege." Aaron looked at me over his coffee, completely unmoved. "Those are not mutually exclusive." I stared at him. He stared back. Then I said, "You are insane." And he answered, "You are impossible." And somehow 20 minutes later, I was sitting on the counter in one of his shirts while he stood between my knees, listening with infuriating focus as I explained, slowly and with several increasingly pointed examples, that protection was one thing and being treated like a diplomatic crisis every time I wanted fresh air was another. He heard me. That was always the difference. Not that he agreed instantly, not that he stopped being overprotective, that he listened, adjusted, and let me see him doing it. By the 8th month, the house no longer felt like somewhere I was being kept safe. It felt like home. Not because it was his, because he had made space inside it that was truly mine. The nursery became the clearest proof. He would never admit how involved he was at first. He pretended it was all Elena and me, all practical decisions and delegated choices. Then one afternoon I walked in and found Aaron DeLuca, who could destroy people before lunch and negotiate 3 cities' worth of business without loosening his tie, standing in the half-finished nursery with a tiny wooden mobile in his hands, reading assembly instructions like they had personally insulted him. I leaned against the doorframe and watched him for a full 10 seconds. Finally, I said, "This is my favorite thing I have ever seen." He did not look up. "Say one word and I'll have the instructions burned." I laughed so hard, the baby kicked. Aaron's head snapped up immediately. "What?" I took his hand and put it over the side of my stomach. There, a sharp little thump, then another. He froze, completely froze, not cold, not hard, not strategic, just stilled by something too profound to move through yet. I watched his face change in slow, devastating increments. First concentration, then disbelief, then something raw enough to crack me open right there on the nursery rug. He looked at my stomach like it contained both a miracle and a threat to every wall he had ever built around himself. Then he looked at me. He did that? The question was so absurdly odd I laughed through sudden tears. Yes. Aaron's hand stayed exactly where it was. Another kick. His mouth parted slightly, no sound for a second. Then he let out the softest curse I had ever heard from him. I covered his hand with mine, and that, more than the public statement, more than the lawyers, more than the nights he sat in the dark with me until panic passed, was the moment I knew with awful, beautiful certainty that I loved him. Not because he protected us, because he had let himself be changed by us, by me, by the baby, by the fragile, terrifying fact of wanting something he could not control with fear or force or money or planning. Love with Aaron was never sweet in the way songs promised. It was deeper, rougher, a thing built by repetition and truth and showing up again and again when it would have been easier to hide behind role or power. The first time he told me, it was nearly midnight, raining hard, and I was 8 months pregnant and furious with him because he had canceled a dinner without asking me first. "It was one dinner," he said from the doorway while I sat propped up in bed with swollen feet and a murderously bad temper. "That is not the point. It usually isn't." I glared at him. "Do not get charming right now." One side of his mouth moved. "I'm not charming." "You absolutely are, and I resent it." He walked over slowly, sat on the edge of the bed, and looked at me for one long second. Then he said very quietly, "I love you too much to let inconvenience win an argument with safety." I blinked. Everything in me went still. "Two?" I repeated stupidly. His eyes darkened. "You think I didn't know?" My throat tightened, because apparently I had been carrying that on my face too. "I was waiting," I whispered. "For what? For it to be safe." Aaron reached out and rested his hand low on my belly, where our son had taken to stretching like he already owned every room he entered. "It will never be safe," he said. "That's not a reason to tell the truth late." Then he lifted his gaze to mine and said it again. "I love you." This time I answered the way I should have the first. Immediately. Completely. like someone stepping into light and refusing to call it anything smaller. When labor started, it began with a lie. Not mine. My body's. The first contractions were mild enough that I spent half the morning insisting it was nothing. Braxton Hicks. Indigestion. The baby trying to rearrange my spine for sport. Aaron watched me over breakfast with the expression of a man who had survived gunfire and negotiations and political fallout, but knew he was losing a silent battle with my denial. By the third time I stopped talking mid-sentence and gripped the edge of the counter. He set his coffee down. You're in labor. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No. A contraction rolled through me, hard enough to shut me up. Aaron waited. I breathed through it, glared at him and said, Don't look smug. I'm not smug. You're internally smug. That was as far as I got before the next one hit. By the time we reached the hospital wing, Aaron had secured so thoroughly it might as well have been a fortified kingdom. I was no longer denying anything. I was too busy surviving. Labor was not beautiful. It was not glowing femininity and soft music and graceful endurance. It was brutal, hot, exhausting, humiliating, animal. It split time into tiny, vicious pieces and demanded everything I had in every one of them. Hours blurred. The doctor's calm voice, nurses moving efficiently, Elena arriving with my bag and then tactfully disappearing when things became too raw for anyone but Aaron. Aaron never left. Not once. He stood beside me through every contraction with his sleeve rolled up, because at some point I had started crushing his forearm in both hands, and he did not so much as flinch. He counted when I needed rhythm. He got ice chips when I needed to bite something cold and harmless instead of his throat. He told me when I was doing well in that low, steady voice of his, and somehow made it sound like fact rather than encouragement. At one point, somewhere near the middle of forever, I looked at him through sweat and pain and tears and said, You did this to me. Aaron, whose shirt was wrinkled for the first time in months and whose hair I had nearly ripped out by accident, actually had the nerve to answer, technically, yes. I laughed and cried at the same time and then threatened murder during the next contraction. When things got worse, and they did, because labor always finds another level if you think it won't, Aaron changed too. Not panicked, never panicked, sharper, more dangerous in his stillness. Every time a nurse frowned too long at a monitor, he noticed. Every time the doctor adjusted tone, he caught it. He asked questions with such clipped precision that no one in the room ever forgot whose child was about to be born there, even if the only person who could truly command anything in that moment was the woman in the bed tearing herself open to bring him into the world. After 19 hours, I thought I was dying. After 21, I told Aaron I hated him. After 22, I bit his shoulder hard enough to leave a mark, and he said, That seems fair. After 23, the doctor said the words I had been too broken to hope for anymore. One more, Naomi. Give me one more. The world narrowed. Pain, heat, pressure. Aaron's hand locked around mine. His voice in my ear, low and rough and unlike any sound I had ever heard from him before. I've got you. Right here. Give me one more. So I did. And then the room changed. A cry, thin at first, then loud, then everything. The sound split me open all over again, but this time from the inside out in a way that had nothing to do with pain. I sobbed. Not elegant, not restrained, just gone with it. The doctor lifted him briefly, all red-faced outrage and wet dark hair and furious life, and I saw him through a blur of tears and sweat and disbelief. Our son, ours, mine, Aaron's, no one else's, never anyone else's. They laid him on my chest first, warm, slippery, crying, perfect. His little body fit against me like he had always known the way home. I looked down at him, and the whole room disappeared. There was only this child, this impossible, fierce little person I had fought for before he had a face. Hi, I whispered, brokenly. Hi, baby. He rooted blindly, cried again, then settled slightly at the sound of my voice. I laughed through tears. He's so mad. Aaron made a sound beside me that I will remember until the day I die. Not quite a laugh, not quite a choke. Something ripped right out of him. I looked up. He was standing beside the bed staring at our son, like the earth had opened and handed him something holy. All the control in his face was gone. Every wall, every weapon, every polished edge, gone. He looked wrecked by love. Do you want to hold him? I asked. For 1 second, Aaron said nothing. Then, very quietly, yes. The nurse helped transfer the baby carefully, and when Aaron took him, God. There are moments life gives you that change the shape of your heart forever, not metaphorically, physically, irreversibly. That was one of mine. Aaron held our son like he was the most dangerous and precious thing in the world, not awkwardly, not like a man afraid to touch something fragile, like a man who understood exactly how much strength gentleness required. Our son quieted almost instantly in his arms, tiny fist flexing against Aaron's chest, dark hair damp, mouth opening once in protest before settling again. Aaron looked down at him for a long time, then he said in a voice so rough I barely recognized it, "He's perfect." I cried harder. Of course I did. The nurse smiled, the doctor wisely looked away. And Aaron, who had once seemed carved out of command and consequence alone, stood beside my bed with our son in his arms looking like he had been cut open and found entirely human underneath. "What's his name?" The doctor asked gently. I looked at Aaron. He looked at me. We had talked about names for weeks, argued over them, discarded dozens, circled back around to 3 we both loved. But in that moment, only one felt right. I smiled through tears. "You say it." Aaron's eyes held mine for one beat. Then he looked down at our son and said with all the quiet certainty of a vow, "Gabriel Luca de Luca." The room went still around it. Gabriel. For strength without cruelty. For surviving the war, he was conceived inside and arriving as something gentler than it. Luca. A bridge between history and what came after. De Luca. Because there was no shadow or shame around his place in this family. Not ever. The nurse wrote it down. I watched Aaron hold Gabriel and understood with absolute, peaceful certainty that Bianca had lost more than a lie. She had lost the right to define what family meant to me. Mama came once after the birth. Just once. Not to the hospital. Aaron would never have allowed it without my consent, and I didn't know yet what I wanted. She came 6 weeks later to the house, smaller somehow. Not physically, spiritually. Like life had finally stopped making room for her delusions, and she had not yet learned how to stand without them. I met her in the morning room with Gabriel asleep upstairs, and Aaron somewhere close enough to hear if I raised my voice. Mama cried the second she saw me. I did not. That was new. She apologized badly at first, then better, then honestly. Not perfectly, not enough to erase anything, but honestly. She said she had failed me, that she had confused keeping peace with being a mother, that she had loved us unevenly because Bianca demanded more and I asked for less, and she had told herself that was practical instead of cowardly. I listened. All of it. When she finished, her face was wet and wrecked and older than I had ever seen it. "Will you ever forgive me?" she whispered. I looked out at the gardens for a long moment before answering. Then I said the truest thing I had. "I don't know." She broke a little at that. I hated that part, but not enough to lie. "I'm not punishing you," I said quietly. "I just can't give you something I don't have yet." Mama nodded with both hands over her mouth. When she left with less than she came for. Not absolution, not access, not a sudden restoration of the old shape of us. But she left with one honest thing, the knowledge that if any future existed between us, it would be built from truth forward, not guilt backward. And Bianca, the final thing I heard about her came almost a year later from an attorney's update. Aaron did not want to show me, and I made him anyway. She had tried to rebuild elsewhere. Failed. Tried to sell some polished tragedy version of herself to the wrong people. Failed again. Eventually disappeared into the kind of expensive obscurity reserved for women who were once admired for surfaces and never taught how to survive once those surfaces cracked. I felt nothing when I read that. Not triumph, not pity, just distance. Some endings are too ruined for emotion. They become weather. Past and gone. Tonight Gabriel is asleep upstairs in the nursery where Aaron once struggled with a mobile and pretended not to care about paint samples. The house is quiet. Home quiet, not haunted quiet, not waiting for the next disaster quiet, safe quiet. I stand at the window in Aaron's shirt, one of Gabriel's tiny blankets folded over my shoulder because I still carry them around without realizing it, and I watch the gardens breathe under moonlight. Aaron comes up behind me without a sound. Of course he does. His hand slides around my waist. Warm. Certain. Home. I lean back into him. "Is he asleep?" I ask. "For now." I smile. That doesn't sound confident. "It's not." His mouth brushes my temple. "Your son has opinions. Our son." His arm tightens. There are still moments when those words hit me fresh. Still moments when I remember the girl who thought she would spend her life folding smaller to survive people like Bianca. Still moments when I wake in the dark and lay a hand over my body as if the danger is still there. Then I hear Gabriel on the monitor, or feel Aaron's hand find me in the night, or catch my own face in the mirror looking less afraid than I used to. And I know exactly where my life split, not when Bianca tried to use me, not even when Aaron found out. It split the moment I stopped calling survival love. Aaron turns me gently in his arms until I'm facing him. He's changed since Gabriel was born. Not softened. Not really. He's still dangerous, still too controlled, still capable of ruining a man before breakfast if the situation requires it. But now there is this other thing in him too. A visible, living tenderness where our son is concerned. A looseness around me that did not exist when we were learning how to trust each other through blood and fear and lawyers. He touches my face with 2 fingers. What are you thinking about? I look up at him, at the man who held the line when I couldn't, who gave me choices and told the truth and let me become someone stronger without trying to own the transformation. Then I smile. The beginning, I say. Aaron's eyes darken with something warm. That bad? I laugh softly and lay my hand over his heart. No, I say. That good. And upstairs, as if he has perfect timing already, Gabriel lets out one indignant newborn cry through the monitor. Aaron closes his eyes briefly. I grin. Go ahead, Mafia boss. He opens one eye. You're enjoying this. Deeply. He leans down and kisses me once, slow, certain, devastating in its familiarity now, then heads for the door. Halfway there, he looks back. You're coming? I glance once more at the moonlit window, at the life I thought was over before it ever had a chance to begin, at the quiet house holding all the things I once thought I had to bleed to deserve. Then I follow him. Of course I do. Because this man, this child, this life built from truth instead of fear, is not the story my sister tried to steal. It is the one I chose, and this time, when I walk toward it, no one is dragging me. If this story wrecked you, let me know in the comments what moment hit you hardest. And if you love dark, scandalous mafia romance, full of obsession, betrayal, and dangerous love, make sure you subscribe to Bayless Audiobooks for more. Until next time, stay ruined.